outcome. IRS problems are serious legal matters, so call Lance Drury Law Firm, located right here in St. Louis. Don't wait. Call 314-260-6120. That's 314-260-6120, and schedule your free consultation with me, Lance Drury, or visit LanceDruryLaw.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
The only sports source in St. Louis that matters. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN.
John Mozeliak will honor the final year of his contract. We'll be back. Oliver Marmol, the manager, will return as well. Hein Bloom is in line for a major promotion. Going to try to revamp a farm system that, years ago was the envy of all of baseball, but it's fallen in disrepair.
That was John Denton on with the morning show earlier today with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. We want to hear from you throughout the day today. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop feature, it's open. It's ready to go. We're going to hear from you throughout today because there's going to be a lot of Cardinals content, as you guys can probably imagine. John Denton reported there what we had seen over the weekend, Alex. John Mozeliak will return next year. Oli Marmol will return next year. The Cardinals are planning to hold a press conference this afternoon at 2 o'clock. You'll hear that right here on 101 ESPN, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Again, Cardinals presser live at 2 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. The news started with those two key figures coming back next year. We're going to get into everything else, but let's start with that, Alex. What was your reaction over the weekend when you heard, officially now, Mo and Oli both going to be back for 2025?
Bad choice. Bad choice for a team that is headed into an area that Cardinals fans haven't experienced in a long time. Like, you were headed into what Blues fans just went through, a retool, rebuild, whatever you want to call it. The Cardinals are admitting they've got a massive problem and it needs to be fixed. But the problem is the two people that you're running it back for at least one more season, who knows if they're here beyond. Well, Mo's not for sure. Oli, you would assume not when the new president of baseball operations takes over. But a team that is headed into uncertainty, and now you're keeping the same people that are in charge, the one man, the Bobo, who kind of led this team into this disastrous situation, and you're going to keep them there for one more year. Oli, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be upset, hit or miss with Oli Marmol. I think he's just stuck in purgatory right now because the roster is going to be in such shambles that you can't really judge the manager. But it just seems like an odd thing to do if you were going to jumpstart this whole process of you fixing what has led the Cardinals into being in this problematic spot. You're going to keep the two guys in charge that a lot of fans have gotten to the point that are like, no, these guys need to go. It just makes no sense to do one more year of it.
I actually don't have a problem with Oli Marmol being back. And I know that's like a hot take here in St. Louis, but I think it's very telling that the Pythag win total for the Cardinals was 76 and they won 83 games. He outperformed that by 7 games, and we've talked about it. They had a bottom 10 offense. They sucked with runners in scoring position. They had a bottom 10 starting pitching rotation. They had a good bullpen. That was basically it. You shouldn't be able to finish above 500 when I read off all those things. And by the way, your pillars, Goldie and Arenado, hit the age curve and didn't perform well this season, and some of the young guys didn't take a step forward. Now, if you want to put some of that on Oli Marmol, I think that's a little fair. I think some of the handling of the young guys was a little weird this season. But I think if he's able to finish above 500, I think that's pretty impressive and pretty good asterisk to put on his resume. So I'm okay with Oli being back. I'm not shocked that Mo's back. I don't think it's a great look for the organization, and I think today they need to announce at this press conference who the next Pobo is so that we know who is actually calling the shots for all the decisions that will impact seasons beyond 2025. I'm not shocked that he's back. I do think it's a terrible look for a guy that now has basically been saying, hey, we couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time, where we couldn't develop players while also trying to win, which is ridiculous when you look across Major League Baseball. But I'm not shocked at all by the decision for them to bring back John Mozeliak. It's very Cardinals-y to continue to kick this issue down the road.
It doesn't make it any less baffling, and that's where I'm at. I don't understand the decision on Mo at all, and I think it comes down to a couple of things would be my guess. One, he's got a contract. Two, he's got respect within the organization. And when you have those two things in place, Cardinals don't typically pay people to not do the jobs that they're currently asked to do, and they don't like pushing people aside if they don't have to when they've done good things for them in the past. That's what this organization has become, in part, is, hey, what have you done for us in the past? Is that something that a lot of Cardinals fans appreciated? And if so, stick around as long as you'd like. You get a scholarship until we no longer need you to be here, or more importantly, until you no longer want to be here. And that's the Mo plan right now. I think Mo gets a lot of undeserved criticism for the early portion of his career here in St. Louis. I think he gets a lot of flack for people who believe, hey, TLR was running the roster. Yeah, well, what about 2013? Because that sure was his team. And at that point in time, it had been so long since Walt Jocketty had been here that it sure as hell wasn't Walt Jocketty's team. TLR, it had been a couple of seasons since he had been here at that point. That was Mo's roster, and they were awesome that year, and he deserves the credit for that team. But sometimes things go stale, and I think that's what's happened here in St. Louis, is that it just has run its course. But the Cardinals don't appear to see it that way. They want to run it back for one more year, and I don't totally understand it. It's something that I'll be curious to hear what they have to say later on this afternoon. What is the plan? Is Chaim Bloom going to be the next president of baseball operations? If so, to a degree I can see it. I mean, he's overseeing the entire minor league system this year. Get that fixed and then put him in place to oversee the baseball operations side at the major league level. Okay, I can at least understand what that looks like projecting forward. But for this upcoming year, if you want him to be the guy, Chaim Bloom, why isn't he making the decisions this offseason? Why doesn't he have the final stamp of approval over what you do with Ryan Helsley and Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras and your young position players that you could potentially trade this offseason? Why is he not taking that mantle now? That is what I do not understand. I don't love the fact that Mo is going to be back in his current capacity. I'm with you guys. I don't have a problem with Oli. I think Oli is a perfectly adequate manager, and I think you look across Major League Baseball, and most people would say, like if I asked people to name their top 5 managers in the sport right now, I think it'd be really hard for most casual fans to do. And that's not a shot against anybody. I'm not talking down to you, I promise. I think it speaks to the lack of importance that a manager has in the modern game. The president of baseball operations, though, whew, we can talk about the teams that are run well. You can see them. It is not hard to figure out. The Cardinals are not one of those teams right now, and I think they should have made a move for that.
I do too. It just seems to be such an odd spot for this Cardinals team to where you're admitting there's a problem. You know that it's going to be a rough year. And like you just mentioned, I just don't understand why you're going to live in this purgatory of like, this guy's going to be in charge for one more year. But we believe this is going to be the next guy in charge. But now we're going to be making all of these rash decisions this offseason that could jeopardize what this team looks like. It feels like you're going to push this team back further than they already were because you're stuck in this purgatory this offseason.
All right. So I want to talk about that a little bit further, because the Cardinals are in a really interesting spot right now. They appear to be ready to head into a youth movement, but they're not willing to really talk about what that means. What they're doing is a rebuild. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like. This is what it feels like. A lot of Cardinals fans have been clamoring for a rebuild for the last couple of seasons. They wanted a new direction. But they wanted a new direction with also a new voice that would be overseeing that direction. And what you get is John Mozeliak's going to oversee it. So I want to hear from you guys. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is off and running, as you can imagine. There are a lot of people that are discussing things today over there. Sure. We will hear from all of you. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. And most importantly, is one of those days where I do like to go to the mic drops. Mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. How do you feel today knowing that Mo's going to be back, Oli is going to be back. Chaim Bloom is going to be overseeing the minor league operations. And the Cardinals appear to be ready to move on from any and all existing contracts on their books. How do you feel about that now that we know what they're planning to discuss later on this afternoon? We'll hear from you throughout the day. Coming up next, I do have a question about the Cardinals tearing this thing down. Is that really completely necessary? I'm not sure it is. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
The Blues season is in full swing, and you can tune in this Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. to hear BK and Ferrario live from the E&B Granite Studio at the Centene Community Ice Center.
Brought to you by Bud Light for the fans on game day, and by E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Beneath your feet lies a hidden threat: earthquakes. Scientists warn it's not if an earthquake will happen, but when. Are you ready? Do you have a plan? The time to act is now. Secure furniture, create an emergency plan, and check your insurance policy. Most homeowner and renter policies don't cover earthquakes. Ask your agent about coverage. When the ground shakes, every second counts. Don't wait for disaster to strike. Visit centralusquake.org to learn more about earthquakes and what you can do to protect yourself and your family.
Save big money on everything at Menards. Keep your guns, ammunition, and valuables secure with Sports Appeal gun safes. We have multiple sizes available to fit your needs. The spacious interiors are fully carpeted to protect against scratches and include adjustable side shelves to suit your storage needs. Save big on Sports Appeal at Menards. And check out our weekly flyer on menards.com for more great deals.
Save big money at Menards.
Obviously, there's sort of two hats you wear when you're in this decision mode. There's the short view, meaning how's it going to affect our club today, versus what some of these implications might look like in the long view. And having said that, I do think the long view is something that we have to take a harder look at, because clearly when you look at what was spent this offseason in those markets, things are changing.
That was John Mozeliak at Winter Warm-Up talking about what the model is for the Cardinals, how it's being tested, and what that means for them long-term. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Alex, the Cardinals have looked at their model. They have looked at what this all means for them long-term and have decided we don't want to be in the business of spending in the offseason anymore.
Yeah,
we don't want to do that.
Why should you?
And so what they're planning on doing, this is according to reports from Katie Wu and John Denton and Derek Gould. You put all the reporting together and you wait until 2 o'clock today as well, when they are expected to have a press conference that you'll hear right here on 101 ESPN. It's effectively a full teardown. Goldie not expected back. Lynn and Gibson not expected to have their options picked up. Carpenter, Kittredge, and Middleton expected to be able to hit free agency. There are open questions about what the future holds for Ryan Helsley here in St. Louis. Sonny Gray, according to Bob Nightingale, is somebody that the Cardinals are expected to shop this offseason. We don't know what the future holds for Arenado, Contreras, or Michaelis. It's possible one or all of them end up being traded this offseason as well. It's a lot of money, man. Those guys that I just mentioned, Arenado, 3 years, $74 million remaining. Contreras, 3 years, $54 million remaining. Sonny, 2 years, $60 million on the books for him. Michaelis, $17 million next year. Helsley expected to be around $10 million in arbitration. They could move on from a decent portion of those salary commitments this offseason. Alex, is this really necessary, though? Did the Cardinals need this offseason to strip it down to the studs and just exclusively go with the young players, in your opinion, or are they taking this a bridge too far?
They're taking this way too far. Like, you going into this offseason and saying, like, hey, we need to get out of some of these bad contracts, but, we'll keep some of these guys around, but, maybe try and move on from a Miles Michaelis, trade away a Ryan Helsley, because by the time we're ready to compete again, he's not going to be as impactful for our roster as, say, he would have been if we were competing 2 years ago. Some of those moves I can understand, but you going into this offseason after saying, look, we've got a problem, our minor league system is just in shambles and we've gotten away what's made us successful in the past. That does not tie into, all right, so let's trade away our best pitcher. Let's trade away one of the bats that when he was healthy this season kept us above water. Let's cut everything from this roster and start from ground zero. That, to me, is going way too far out on the other side, because for a Cardinals team that just needs to fix their player development and bring in a few more instructors so that you could be at the same level of some of these major league teams, that's doable. That's also doable while you spend money at the major league level, or at least remain consistent at the major league level and try and compete with some of the younger players and have a couple of veterans around. But just slashing the payroll from top to bottom and saying we're getting rid of Sonny Gray, we're getting rid of Wilson Contreras, we're moving on from Goldschmidt. Hell, they might try and look to move on from Nolan Arenado. We are cutting this to the bare minimum because our minor league system is so bad. Like, those two things do not tie together if I'm a Cardinals fan.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Guys, I think you might be reading this wrong. I think the reason why Mo is still the president of baseball operations is because he is going to strip it down to have no big contracts remaining, and then he'll hand it over to the next guy. Why bring in a new president of baseball operations and have him do it and be the bad guy? The reason why is because the return on this matters. What you get in return for Sonny Gray is significant. What you get in return for Ryan Helsley is significant. What you get in return if you decide to trade any of those young position players is important. That's meaningful. And I want the guy that's going to be in charge long term to be the one that is going out and acquiring and accumulating all of that young prospects' talent. So that's why I think it's really important. And clearly the Cardinals disagree with my opinion on this, but and maybe it is true that behind the scenes, Chaim Bloom is going to have more say in those decisions than what we currently are being led to believe. We don't know, but I find it strange that that's the direction that they went. As for this requiring a full teardown, I don't think it needed to be this way at all. Alex, I know it's kind of hard to feel this way right now because of how terrible the season was, but if you had told me, hey, they're going to pick up the option on Kyle Gibson, they're going to bring back Kittredge, let all of the other free agents walk, and they're going to try to move on from the Arenado money. Like, they're just going to try to get that off of their books. They're going to eat whatever they have to be able to make that work, but they're going to trade him to Angels, Dodgers, somebody on the West Coast, right? And he ends up going there. I think you could have run this back with basically everybody else, made a couple of significant aggressive trades this offseason, and came back next season with a team that should have been expected to win like 86 to 90 games. And I don't think that's far-fetched. I think that totally could have had. You won 83 games this year with Goldie and Arenado taking up $60 million on your books.
And being two of the worst hitters on your team.
Just completely non-productive players in the middle of your lineup. I think you could have turned this thing over relatively quickly. They're choosing to go the opposite direction, and I wish they would be honest about it. This is what's bothering me the most about all of this is, man, I don't think what they have is a hard sell for this fan base. I really don't. Now, it would require some good PR. I do think it would have required them to at least not bring back John Mozeliak. But most importantly, it requires them to be honest to their paying customer. Because what's happening right now is they're out here trying to sell me, you, and every fan of this team that they can't pay for both the minor league system and the major league system at the same time. That's what they're basically saying. In some fashion or form, they have told Katie Woo and yesterday Derek Gould, listen, we stopped investing in the minor league system because we had to use that money to subsidize the major league roster. We stopped producing those major league players from our minor league system, so we had to go pay Wilson Contreras. We had to go pay Sonny Gray, etc. Guys, am I really supposed to believe that the 5-10, maybe, like, if we want to get really crazy about it, $15 million that they stopped spending at the minor league system, that it was reinvested at the major league level, and it was a conscious decision that they decided to pull from the minor league system to the major league system? Because, man, some of this stuff is public information, and I don't know that the Cardinals seem to realize that right now. Like, Mark DeJean left in 2019, at the end of the 2019 season. He retired. They never filled his spot. They lost a couple of instructors, roving instructors, in the 2020 COVID season. And they just never filled those positions. They effectively went cheap during COVID, along with a lot of other companies across America, not just in baseball, but nationwide. But a lot of those companies refilled the positions when the pandemic was over. The Cardinals did not. Now, am I supposed to believe, and we can look at this, like, their payroll is public information. Their payroll did not go up in a meaningful way over the last 5 seasons, Alex. So where did that get reinvested? Because their coaching staff's smaller at the major league level. So it's not like they reinvested the minor league money that they were spending on coaches to the major league. No, that didn't happen. It didn't happen where they were reinvesting in a meaningful way at the major league level with the money that they had previously been spending, according to them, at the minor league level. That didn't happen. Alex, what they're doing is going cheap because of how fearful they are about their TV contracts and because of the lack of revenue this year from ticket sales. That's what this is. Why can't we just be honest? Why can't they just come out and say, listen, we have the same fears this offseason that the Texas Rangers had last offseason. They were coming off of a World Series and did not spend. The Minnesota Twins last offseason did not spend and, in fact, slashed payroll coming off of a playoff appearance. Meanwhile, here in St. Louis, we're sold this bag of goods of, well, you know, we used to spend a lot on the minor league system, and we stopped spending all that on the minor league system. So now we're spending it on the major league system, and now we have to reinvest in the minor leagues. Get out of here. Stop lying to us.
And this is why I don't really think it matters what is said today at 2 o'clock at this press conference, because Cardinals fans need to stop feeling like they're being lied to. Because every single time something comes out, the opposite takes place. And every single time it's like, okay, but what are you going to try and sell us this time? Okay, well, I don't buy this. Because that was my thought. When you're looking at this and you're hearing them talking about how our minor league system has just gone into shambles and we need to reinvest in so that our players get to the major league level and are ready to develop, that's great. But you can't sit here and say, well, now we can't invest in the major league roster because we're investing in the minor leagues. If you're putting $150 million into the minor leagues like the payroll you were for the major leagues, then this better be a damn good team in a couple of years for your development for these prospects. And then it's like you get to think long-term future. And look, I understand we're yelling about John Mozeliak right now, but I think it's important. A lot of this is the ownership in charge of making sure that the proper funds is being allocated to the right direction. But if I'm a Cardinals fan, what I'm being told is, okay, well, we can't manage the minor leagues and the major leagues at the same time. So we're going to just completely deteriorate the major leagues so that the minor leagues can improve. And then when you're ready to compete, do I expect you to be able to do both of those things again? Because past history is not going to show that from what you've just told us.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line. This one comes from Brandon. Not making that up. Spelled differently. Brandan.
I saw you
texting
texting.
yourself?
I saw him texting over there. But then when I read the
That's
text
weird,
that
man.
BK's going to send him,
Give it a
this
sec.
makes sense.
Let me know if you think that this is from me.
Okay.
You guys are just haters. Stop your bitching. You don't own the team. It's not your money.
Yeah, that's from you.
The next text is even better.
It is your team as fans. Like this is a public trust is what the Cardinals are operating. And this notion that we shouldn't talk about what they're doing with their money, no, that's exactly what we should be talking about. Because if they don't go out there and invest in the product that you are investing in, that is a huge story, guys. A huge story. The Cardinals are effectively slashing their payroll and slashing the money that they're spending. And what's going to happen, Alex, is, and some of this is understandable, there is real fears, and this is why I say just be honest about it. There's real fear about what the revenues will be next year from their TV contracts. That's meaningful for the St. Louis Cardinals. There should be real fear about what it's going to look like in terms of their ticket sales next year and what it was this year. Those both came down, and that's going to impact the amount of money that they have to spend. That makes sense. If, Alex, you or I lost our jobs and we have to operate our family life income, our family life expenditures, things are going to have to change in our lives, right? Like if you lose one source of income, what you're then spending becomes different. That's the case for you at home. That's the case for the Cardinals with what they're spending on players. I get that. And I think if the Cardinals are honest about it and they just come out and say, hey, we used to get $50 million in a check every year, no questions asked, from Bally Sports Midwest, and that was the way that we operated as a business. And next year we don't know if we're getting 50 or 25. I think a lot of Cardinals fans would say, we get that. That makes sense to us. And if in return, what you have to do is go around and trade Sonny Gray to be able to make up that money, that makes sense to Cardinals fans. This is a smart fan base that will listen and understand what you're trying to sell them. But you have to be honest about it. You can't tell your fans, hey, we need to reinvest in the minor league system, when nobody knows what that's actually going to cost. Like, I cannot be sold that it's going to cost them $30 million next year to, quote unquote, reinvest in their minor league system. That's nonsense, dude.
You know why you bring that up, though? Because people aren't going to question it if you're the Cardinals. People aren't going to question if they're saying, well, we're trying to fix our minor league system so that we can get back to what juggernauts the Cardinals were in the early 2000s when we were just continuing to develop minor league player after minor league player, and they were winning and winning. It's an area that if you bring up, if you're a Cardinals front office, you're not going to get pushback.
Yeah.
Because
no,
you're
right.
you're going to push back because I'm trying to reinvest in the minor league system? You know where you get pushback? Well, we can't afford to pay what we're paying because we're not getting the money from the television.
Man, don't you think most fans would understand that, though?
I think,
like, if they were honest about it and they said, listen, like, just full disclosure, just tell your fans what the truth is. Because they're not making anything up. They're not the only team that is so fearful over their contracts with their TV deal that they stopped spending. The Rangers did this last offseason, man. They were coming off of a World Series and had a really good team, and they're like, we can't bring back Jordan Montgomery. We can't rationalize it because of how fearful we are over what this revenue stream is going to be for us next year. The Twins did the same thing. Like, the Padres, who were super aggressive last offseason, also slashed their payroll in a serious way because they're another team that lost their Bally Sports deal. They're now doing the streaming stuff. So if they had just come out and said, hey, we have a $15 million portion of our payroll pie that we think is going to take a serious step back, and we lost X amount of dollars this year via tickets, and we understand that's on us. We got to be better, and we're going to try to be better. We're going to try to build our team back up so you feel like you need to come back to Busch Stadium. Like, there's a way you could sell this as an organization while also acknowledging the money that was coming in is less now than it was then. Therefore, we can't put as much into the team. If they explain it the right way, I think fans would understand. But instead, what they're doing is taking this, well, we've got to get back to investing in our minor league development approach. And it's not honest.
Yeah.
It's intellectually dishonest, and it's a lie to every single paying customer, in my opinion, unless they come out and they show like, hey, this is how, the $30 million.
You want a pie chart, man. You want a pie chart.
A pie chart would be great at the presser.
Mo's at Kinko's right now with just poster board. Be like, could you put this on? No, I need that one.
Think about the teams that invest heavily in their minor league system. It's the Rays. It's the Brewers. It's small market teams. It's the Royals. You know why they do that? Because it's so much cheaper than paying for the big league club. So much cheaper. You can get so much more bang for your buck by having all this technology and great coaching down in the minor leagues than you can by paying for the players at the major league level. One player at the major league level in an offseason, one like mid-level, Miles Michaelis, could probably pay for the entire minor league system just with his salary. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just Miles Michaelis. You don't have to slash $50 million in payroll to be able to pay for that. So that's where I grow frustrated.
I also just feel like the Cardinals have put themselves in such a hole that anything they say they have to do damage control on. Like, I think these last few years, it's been, you could be honest, but nobody's going to believe it. And so it's like they have to find something that can shade.
Well, the problem is they haven't been honest.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're in damage control of past years that now if you try and be honest, nobody's going to believe you. And so it's like you're just playing catch up with what they're doing.
What he just sold, like if you used what BK just did as kind of the ideal way you sell this, the right way of this is why we're doing this, fans would buy that because it's true. And like you can look and see like, hey, there are a sense to it. They've been talking about it for like 3 years
100%.
now. The problem where they get into what you're talking about is, well, yeah, when they say like, oh, well, payroll's going up. Well, I can understand why people would question that because like the little sliver of truth that was actually in that in years past was, yeah, it went up if you count deferred money to like an Adam Wainwright. That's where you lose the trust in the fan base.
Or if you change, like it's accounting stuff that they're doing with the payroll, and that's fine. Like payroll accounting matters, right? You look at the NFL teams, and there are teams that push money into future years. There are ways that these teams can make this stuff work. And so that's all fine. And it may feel kind of sleight of handish, but if it's true, it's true. Payroll did go up. They didn't lie. They just, fun with number stuff. We got this text from the 515, and I do want to hear from you guys via the mic drop feature. We're going to get to those coming up in the next segment. And we'll do a lot of them throughout the day today. From the 515, you guys are so off track. I mean, seriously, BK, how much money did you spend out of pocket on the Cardinals? Revenue has gone down huge in back-to-back years. The DeWitts have always said, this team is a separate entity, and I do not operate entities in the red. They have said what their plan is, and you may get that if you take some cotton out of your mouth and out of your ears and stick it in your mouth. Shut up and listen from time to time.
That was Mike Schilt.
I feel like I said previously, I understand that revenue has gone down, and it's why it's not a hard sell to me. If you had just come out and were honest and said, hey, listen, our revenue streams are down. We cannot spend what we used to. That makes sense to me. Like, I can listen to a plan. I can understand, if you explain things well, why you're going down the path that you are. I think it makes sense to most Cardinals fans. The part where I get frustrated is that has not been what they've said their plan is. They have said that their plan is to slash at the major league level to invest in the minor league level. Can we just start with that? Because that's step one of what they say that their plan is. They say that they have to do that because they previously did the opposite, where they stopped investing at the minor league level because they had to use that money to invest in the major league level. I don't believe them. I don't believe them. Flat out. I don't believe it. And I think that some of what they're saying right now deserves scrutiny that it has not been getting. So I'm fascinated to hear what they say at 2 o'clock. I can't wait to hear their explanations on all of this stuff. Maybe they will explain it, Alex, publicly in a way that makes all the sense in the world. And tomorrow we come on and be like, you know what? They sold it pretty well. That's entirely possible. But with what we've seen so far, interviews with Katie Wu, interview with Derek Gould yesterday, haven't been sold yet. Want to hear from you guys. Have you been sold? What are your thoughts on Mo Oli being back, Chaim Bloom now being placed in a significant role, a more prominent role within the organization to oversee the minor leagues, and what we read yesterday that the Cardinals are planning to slash payroll at the major league level. They're planning to invest in a more significant way, get back to their roots of the development at the minor league level. What are your thoughts on what we have learned about the Cardinals' current plan moving forward? We'll hear from you via the mic drop feature coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks Near Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals wrapped up the regular season yesterday with a win over the San Francisco Giants as they finished the season with an 83-79 record. And today they will have their end of season press conference, 2 o'clock. You can hear it here live on 101 ESPN. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet, Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
I'm expecting this afternoon's conference to sound just like a Charlie Brown cartoon. Blah, 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 blah.
That's Janet with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Be interesting to hear what the Cardinals have to say. That'll be coming up today at 2 o'clock. The Fast Lane will have that for you live here on 101 ESPN as John Mozeliak and Bill DeWitt Jr. are expected to meet with the assembled media out at Busch Stadium for their end-of-season press conference. Plenty to discuss for sure. We want to hear from you. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. How do you feel about the news that we heard over the weekend? Mo's back. Oli's back. Sounds like Goldie is likely gone. There is some conflicting reporting on that, but likely gone. They're going to try to move a bunch of their salary off of their books, including Sonny Gray, potentially Wilson Contreras, Ryan Helsley. They're not expected to pick up the options for Lynn or Gibson. How do you guys feel as they go forward with a true youth movement? Let's hear from Roger.
I agree that bringing back Oli is fine with what he had to work with. He did a pretty decent job. But for nothing else than public relations, you couldn't bring Mo back. This is going to do nothing to get enthusiastic in the crowds, and you're going to see another down year in attendance. And it's just like having a lame duck president. Nobody pays attention to him in that final year of their office, and nobody's going to pay attention to Mo in the final year in office. And they need to make a change. Like I said, for nothing else than for PR reasons.
This is a BK kind of mic drop. Look, I don't want to get political or anything.
What's going on there? What's he doing,
BK's
man?
like, hey, man, when you send this one in, this sounds good.
I heard a dog, I think, that was panting in the background. I heard what appeared to be some kind of a near collision. And
it's because he's got such a hot take on the mic drops.
I like it.
Just be safe when you're out there, ladies and gentlemen, while you're sending those mic drops. Don't leave dogs thirsty for more.
I do think he's right. I mean, I don't have an issue with. I personally agree with the stance. I don't know if he's right or not, but I agree with the stance. I don't have an issue with Oli coming back. It's not going to be popular with the fans, but if he wins next year, people will be fine with it. They're not going to win, though.
I was going to say,
I know.
It's really set up well for that occasion.
Yeah. Mo coming back is it's a PR thing more than anything else. Yeah. Honestly, like it's
his last year, and you're not going to want to see it. Well, and let's be frank about this, too. The Cardinals, if they're slashing prices, they're not going to pay somebody to not do their job.
Yeah, I just, when I say it's a PR thing, like it's not helpful for PR for them to bring Mo back in his current capacity.
I don't think anything's been helpful on their PR front, though, for the last 3 years.
No doubt. And that's not to call out like the PR people within the organization. It's
how the front office handles these situations.
The way that they have spoken as an organization to fans has been... It leaves something to be desired. All right, let's hear from Keith via the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app.
Just listen to some of Mozeliak's comments, and here's what I don't understand, and they haven't addressed yet. Maybe they will. Why did they let the minor league system get like this? They complain sometimes or stress that they're a small market team, but they don't have small market revenues, and they've always focused on player development. So why, after the pandemic, did they fill these roles in the minor leagues in pitching instructors and technology and analytics and things like that? Why did they move away from that? I think here's the answer. They're cheap. They're cheap. Yeah, the payroll's been in the top 10 or 15 for many, many years, but behind the scenes, penny pinching, that has to be it. And now they're paying the price for that. Tear it down? I don't know if that's the answer or not, obviously. And I don't really have a lot of faith in the current regime to fix it. I don't have a whole lot of hope that it's going to get a lot better really soon.
Can I tinfoil on
Please?
this? Like, why didn't they invest more in the minor league system? is purely a tinfoil. I want to say that on the front end. Don't aggregate this.
Oh, we will. T-Bone, get ready to record.
My tinfoil is like, what if they didn't have the people in the minor league system that they felt would be able to utilize that technology, those analytics? They didn't feel like they would actually be able to get the most out of this stuff, so why would I even invest? Now, that doesn't speak highly of some of the people that they had involved with their minor league system. That is 100% true. And some of what he's talking about there is the lack of instruction. I can't speak to that, man. I don't know. It's baffling to me that an organization that had prided itself for so long on the instructors that were within the organization. I mean, hell, we talked to Mo a few years ago. This was after the passing of, one of the Cardinals greats. I can't remember which one it was. It was a few years ago now, but we talked to Mo about, what it's like to have all of these Hall of Famers, not just Cardinals Hall of Famers, but Major League Baseball Hall of Famers that would come back to spring training or that would work as roving instructors within the organization. He said, well, that's actually the Cardinals' secret sauce, is that we have all of these guys that come back and pour into our minor league system. And the Cardinals willingly decided to eliminate many of those positions. So I don't know. I would love to hear them explain that today. That is something that I'm sure will be asked, is how did this happen?
Yeah.
How did you allow this to happen?
And what's weird about it, too, is in these past couple of years with free agency, they've brought, like Sonny Gray, for example. Mo talked so much after that signing about how they had conversations with Sonny Gray about how we can fix certain things and what we need in our system so that we can continue to stay pace with all of these teams around Major League Baseball. But then nothing came from it. 3 years ago now, we talked about how Chris Carpenter was hired by the Angels as a pitching consultant, and the Cardinals were just like, nope, sorry, can't do it. Now, again, post-COVID, that's what they would tell you, but at some point, you saw all teams around Major League Baseball start to reinvest in stuff that they had to cut back on, and for a Cardinals team that talks so much about having Isringhausen and having Ryan Ludwig and having Jose Oquendo and Willie McGee, but then it's like you see all of these other former Cardinals that are getting hired or going elsewhere, and then the Cardinals are kind of sitting on their hands. I mean, it's a part that if you're going to talk about it being your secret sauce, you can't also look back on it and say, well, we got away from what made us great. You've been doing this for such a long time because you've always had these guys around, but then all of a sudden you just decided to back away from it, which is why we get back to the conversation we started with of you just feel like you're being lied to.
All right, let's hear one more. This is from Patrick via the mic drop feature.
I'm fine with going younger. I'm fine with selling some of the older players. But as long as this doesn't become the new cheap model of selling all of our talent before we have to pay them, we need to be aggressive sometime in the next couple of years to bring on big contracts to pay our players if they're playing well. So I'm fine with the rebuild, but it can't just be the new model of being cheap.
I have bad news.
Isn't that what the rebuild is?
Who's the team that changed their model to being more cheap or frugal or whatever you want to use as the word to describe shrinking their payroll, that then went back towards spending more? I guess Texas would be the model, but that's a much bigger market.
They went pretty back to cheap, quote unquote, again.
I do fear. I don't think this is something you just take back. Like, once you go in this direction, generally speaking, this is the model. And then if it doesn't work, then you could see them accelerate it, and they're like, you know what, we got to go do something different. Let's get back to what we used to be as the Cardinals, right? Let's stop trying to emulate the Rays, start being more like the Cardinals. I could totally see that being the press conference 5 years from now that they have. Yeah, man, I don't have a whole lot of hope that this is just going to be like they're going to get back to $180+ million in payroll at some point within the next 3 years. I would not bet on that.
No, I think when you look at a rebuild and you're changing philosophy, you understand what that is. You're cutting costs and you're going basically whatever you can get for it, because the guys you're trading away, you're not bringing in high prospects. You're bringing in the best you can get to move off of bad contracts for the Cardinals.
All right, let's hear from you guys coming up next. There's plenty to discuss on the Cardinals. There's plenty to discuss in college football as well. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get some questions and answers next year on 101 ESPN. Alex, we got a doubleheader Monday Night Football tonight, and I'm looking at the Lions -4. I like the Titans versus the Dolphins to go over 36.5 points this evening as well. I'm doing that over on the Circa Sports app in the state of Illinois. If you have not downloaded it yet, it is time for you to do so. They have the best odds. Lions, for example, they're -4 over on the Circa Sports app. If you go to FanDuel, -4.5. I like my odds better over on the Circa Sports app. They give me the best odds. They win me the most money possible. This is why we bet exclusively with Circa, Alex.
Yeah, I love them so much because they tell you to go check out other sportsbook, compare those lines. They know you're coming back. They are confident in their product. And on top of all of it, when you put together those big parlays, when you're going with these doubleheader football matchups, you're going to bring home as much money as possible because Circa keeps as little money as possible on those large market bets or those parlays. So check them out. Download it for all of your Monday night action. And the customer service, well, you're always speaking with an actual person, not speaking with any chat bots. Download it today. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Three one 9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Coming up here in just a little bit, we're going to talk about the Cardinals system. And is it actually producing less homegrown talent than what we saw in the early to mid 2000s? We'll talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. But this one comes from the 314. Alex, after watching Georgia, Miami, and Ole Miss get exposed over the weekend, do you think there's a dark horse team that could win the college football playoff this year?
Man, I don't know if there's a specific dark horse team because after watching all of those teams being exploited, and then, I mean, like Alabama looked awesome, but I still, for some reason, don't buy into Alabama. I feel like this field is wide open, and I know we've talked about this. Like, I still think Texas is probably the best of this bunch. But, like, if you're asking me for a dark horse, man, I don't know if I could invest any confidence in any of these teams outside of Texas.
Yeah, I think this is Texas's championship, and we're just waiting to see them at the end. This feels a lot like it's not as dominant as in recent years where we've been able to look and say, okay, we're on a collision course for Georgia versus whoever that other team was in years past. Or like last year, we knew Michigan was a team that was going to get to the championship game. I think it's just Texas, and then we'll see who ends up playing out. I actually still am very high on Miami. I know they did not play well. Weird Friday night game, conference opponent. And Virginia Tech's actually a decent opponent. I'm still pretty high on that Miami team. I think they're getting a little undersold after their struggles this weekend.
I agree. I would like to see Texas play somebody before I say that they're just the overwhelming favorite.
What about Michigan?
Yeah, what about them?
I'm surprised they're top 10 still.
Michigan is fine. Nothing more, nothing less. Michigan barely beat USC, barely beat Minnesota, played both of those games at home. I would not be surprised if a couple of weeks from now, Illinois beats Michigan. Wouldn't shock me at all.
It would shock the hell out of me, and I've got tickets to that game.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all. I think this is a year where any one of probably 10 teams could win the title. Bama, Texas, Ohio State, Tennessee, Georgia, Oregon, Miami, maybe Ole Miss if they get things turned around a bit. Like those are probably the 8. If Mizzou figures things out and they get a fortunate bounce or two. Maybe Penn State, if they just have that dominant running game. I don't know that I trust them, though. They're going to have to score eventually, and I just don't know that their offense is good enough. But yeah, like 10 different teams I think could win the national championship this year. I don't think anybody's great. And that includes Alabama after what we saw this weekend. I think they're really good. I don't think that they're as good as any of the 4 teams that made the college football playoff last year.
I think Alabama's got weaknesses just like we saw Georgia have their weaknesses.
Exactly.
Like the only one, and again, a lot of this is because they haven't played anybody. The only one that I haven't seen a weakness with is Texas, but I wonder if we see that at some point.
Yeah. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, how do you think that Jalen Hurts looked over the weekend? Do you feel like the Eagles are officially a pretender?
I feel like they're a pretender. Now, it's hard because obviously they're dealing with injuries, but I'm not fully invested in Jalen Hurts, and maybe some of this is just the offense in general because he doesn't have the weapons. They feel like a one-trick pony. It's Saquon Barkley or bust. Now, when they get Brown and Smith back, does it look a little different?
Sure.
Didn't look all that different in the beginning of the season, but the bigger flaw with Philadelphia is their defense.
I think the Commanders might be the best team in that division. I don't mean to like overreact to what we saw over the weekend. I think their defense is really not very good, although they played an inspired game yesterday against the Cardinals. I was impressed with them. I think they might just be the best team in the NFC East. I didn't see it coming.
They feel a lot like the Texans last year.
Yeah.
They feel a lot like the Texans last year, where you don't understand how they're doing it, but they're doing it.
Well, they've got a quarterback. Just like the Texans last year, you look up and you're like, wow, C.J. Stroud last year and Jaden Daniels this year, just better than anybody expected.
Yep.
I'm with you on that with the Commanders because I think right now, like in the NFC East, Daniels is the best quarterback in that division, and like it's not close. Like Jalen Hurts has not been impressive, and look, I do get it; they are missing their 2 big wide receivers. If you're a great quarterback, you should be able to lift up the guys around.
He's still
you.
making mistakes.
Yeah, exactly, and they just feel off. The vibes around them with Nick Sirianni and all of that stuff. Is just off. I agree, too. Their defense has not been impressive through the first 4 weeks. I think they're a team that I don't know if we overreacted to them in the regular or preseason. They just don't feel like a good football team. They feel like a team that's going to be like 9-8 at best.
All right, last thing here. Guys, who is your sleeper team to win the World Series this year?
A lot of sleepers today.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of sleepers to go around.
I think the American League is where I would want to go for this. Like I feel like Detroit or Kansas City, I think, would be your teams.
Ooh.
And the reason why is because they've got pitching, and the American League feels a lot more open than the National League does. Like the National League, all of those teams are really good. The American League, I'm not sure anybody's particularly good outside of Houston.
There's no sleeper team in the National League because, like, I don't think you consider the Padres a sleeper in Milwaukee.
They're all the same.
No bleeping way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had to put 2 of Detroit and Kansas City in front of me, I think I would go Kansas City because I don't trust Detroit offensively. I think they've got problems, and going up against Houston and then potentially Cleveland, you're going to have some offense at some point, although Cleveland's pitching's been pretty bad. Kansas City's got a superstar. And, like, I give a team an advantage if you've got a superstar on the roster.
Superstar player. Yeah. That's the formula.
They feel very Diamondback-y from a year ago.
And I think the Orioles and Yankees are at least a decent path to get to the ALCS.
I don't think that the Royals will get to the World Series. I want to be clear on that. If I had to pick one team, I would go with the Astros. That's the team that I think is getting through the American League. But if you're asking me to pick somebody that would be a surprise that could get there, one of the Royals or the Tigers, throw them into a blender, see which one comes out. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm still very high on the Diamondbacks. I just don't think they're getting in. Like, they have the worst case scenario today where they need they need somebody to sweep. I don't see it happening. If they get in, they're the sleeper for me. I love that team, and I loved them last year as well going into the playoffs.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, are the Cardinals actually worse at producing homegrown talent today than they were in the early to mid-2000s? May sound like a strange question given what we've been talking about all day, but I think it's worthy of exploring. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. It's BK. It's time to unlock your inner champion today. Did you wake up feeling like the best version of yourself? Do you have the same energy as you did when you were in your mid-20s? Do you have that same excitement for life? Are you getting the same out of your workouts? If the answer to any of those questions was no, it's time to check out Victory Men's Health. You can do so in one of their 4 great locations across the St. Louis area, or easiest way, go to victorymenshealth.com. In the top right corner of their website, you can click on the tab that says Book Now. Super easy process. Put in your name, number, email, a little bit about yourself, tell them what you've been dealing with, and they will get you signed up for an appointment as soon as humanly possible. That's exactly what I did. That was my process with Victory Men's Health, and they were able to help me unlock my inner champion. For me, it was going in, getting a micronutrient lab, testing for all of my different levels. That includes for low testosterone. Turns out I was a little low on some of my vitamins, and now whenever I go out on my runs, I've got more energy. It's helping me out in that way. If you got some weight loss goals, low testosterone, erectile dysfunction, they can help you out at Victory Men's Health. Check them out today, victorymenshealth.com. That's victorymenshealth.com.
The players that the Cardinals pumped out regularly that kind of fueled that run from 2011 through 2015, those players aren't coming anymore. And when they get to the big leagues, they're not really panning out.
That was John Denton earlier today. We do have some breaking news in Major League Baseball. How about this? Farhan Zaidi has been fired as the president of baseball operations with the San Francisco Giants.
What?
Buster Posey is taking over as the president of baseball operations for the team after Farhan Zaidi's firing.
All right, let's all start the chant. Albert Pujols for the Cardinals.
Dude, this is wild.
We had like a coup go down in San Francisco.
Okay. We're going to get to the Cardinals here in just a moment. Can you imagine what basically just happened here? The equivalent for the Cardinals would be
Albert Pujols.
Mo getting fired and then saying, Albert, you're in charge.
Yeah.
With like no training, just Albert, come on in. Let's do this. You're going to be our new president of baseball.
What do they really need training for? You know how to run a team.
I'm not telling you this is going to be a disaster. I have no idea if Buster Posey will be good at this or not.
Was he an assistant this year with them?
He was a special advisor. He was like in the Yachty role, but he actually did his job.
Jeez. Hey,
well,
man.
I'm not wrong.
Hey,
did
man.
you see Yachty at all this year?
He might have been working from Puerto Rico.
No, come on, man.
No, he wasn't.
I mean, what he said wasn't. What he said was fair.
He actually did what Ludwig and Isringhausen do, which is their job.
Jesus. Hey, you need to chill over there.
I'm upset about what they're doing.
Tanner's right, but I just wasn't prepared for it.
You need to chill.
Sorry it didn't, the filter didn't catch that.
No.
Here's my favorite part. The Giants announced in 2022 that Posey had joined the 30-member ownership group of the Giants and would serve on its board of directors. So he's both part owner and president of baseball operations.
Is that allowed?
I think he'll have to give up his shares, would be my assumption there. But I
think the shares would be part owner than be the Pobo.
Yeah.
Man, that is super interesting. I mean, the way that they're going about it.
They're going off of the the locker room vibes check more than anything for a guy like Buster Posey, where it's like, hey, we feel like you know how to run a baseball team. We'll have people that can help you with the finances and that stuff, but we trust your judgment on running a team.
This is what's so funny is I think like 2 weeks ago they came out and said, he's doing a great job. Like he'll be back. Him and Bob Melvin, they'll lead the charge. And they signed Matt Chapman to that contract extension, and now they're just
If you're Bob Melvin, are you a little concerned?
To connect this news to the Cardinals, guess what model the Giants gave it away. Guess what model
race.
The Giants were trying to emulate.
Did they though?
Yeah, Farhan Zaidi came from the Dodgers, and the Dodgers system comes from Tampa Bay. All of these have like these tentacles all across the Major League Baseball right now.
The Dodgers system is spend money.
The Rays wouldn't sign Blake Snell, Matt Chapman, and
Shohei Ohtani.
Sure.
What else did they do? They did one other move.
Jordan Hicks.
The idea behind what the Giants were trying to do is become this like producer talent from within system. Then we go out and spend the money to be able to supplement that. And they just were never able to get the superstar, sound familiar, from the outside to come help them out. It didn't work there. And the end result was them saying, you know what, enough of it. This isn't working. We're going to have to go a new direction. There are pitfalls to what the Cardinals are trying to do is what I'm saying here. Like I don't necessarily blame them for going this direction of let's go youth movement, let's see what happens, and then we'll alter our course when necessary. Man, there's been a lot of teams that have tried to go with this youth movement thing, and for a lot of them, they just get stuck for the next decade.
Well, and to go the youth movement, you have to, one, be able to identify the youth that you're bringing in to be a part of that movement, and that's what we talked about earlier, to where it's like, that's why this keeping Mo in place for this offseason when you're trading Ryan Helsley and Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras, those guys should be bringing you back at least one player that plays into your future.
For sure.
When have the Cardinals pulled off a trade for a younger player that you look at and you're like, oh, damn, he's going to be significant? Like TK Roby and Thomas Ajayce felt probably like the most.
Sure. Giovanni Gallegos, getting him.
Yeah.
I'm being serious.
But he wasn't a top prospect.
No, but it was a good move. Like, you got rid of Luke Voigt, ended up getting Giovanni Gallegos in return. That was a smart baseball move.
But, like, these types of moves, you're going, like, bottom of the barrel. Like, you're going A-ball prospects that you're hoping can be a part of the future, it would seem.
That's just not the way the Cardinals have operated, dude. Like, think about when was the last time that the Cardinals made those kinds of moves? Like, I'm open for discussion. Who was the last Cardinal that they, like, sold high on? Like, if they end up trading Ryan Helsley this offseason, what is the comparison for that? What is the comparable move that the Cardinals have made in recent memory where they said, you know what, we're selling while we can? Like Colby Rasmus?
Or Shelby Miller.
I don't know if Rasmus.
Shelby Miller.
Rasmus counts. Miller.
But Miller
had
was
a couple
going out
of
to get a
years.
star.
Yeah.
Shelby Miller was, hey, let's go get Jason Hayward
Yeah.
with this guy. This would be the opposite of that. This would be selling for pieces.
What did you get for Colby Rasmus? I don't even remember.
Was that the
relievers? Zipchinky?
Yeah, he was in the deal for Zimchinski.
So I guess that would be different as well.
Yeah.
What's the comp?
JD Drew? For Waino?
Sure, because that's trading for a prospect.
I mean, and Drew at the time was supposedly a middle of the order bat. Yeah. Like that, and that wasn't even Mo. That was Walt Jocketty.
The reason why I bring this up is because it's been a really long time since the Cardinals have done what they're getting ready to do. And I also think it is worth discussing. Let's take them. Let's go back to the starting point of what led us here, right? Because the Cardinals are saying, hey, listen, our system is not providing us with the players that it once did, so we have to reinvest in our minor league system. I do think they're correct that they need to reinvest in their minor league system. I think the explanation as to why is maybe a little bit misleading. Am I supposed to take them at their word that they're not producing the same level of players that they once did? Because I don't know that I buy it. Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, Vaughn Herrera. Yes, I understand he can't throw, but hot damn, that bat works.
But you can't work with the throwing. You can't teach throwing.
Alec Burleson, like Tommy Edman previously. I understand he's no longer here with the Cardinals, but he was a guy that you developed from within. Harrison Bader, Colton Wall. Like, this team has produced some pretty damn good position players. Now, no stars.
Never heard Albert Pujols or Yadier Molina.
That I just mentioned were stars. And if there's a concern, it's what happened with Jordan Walker and what happened with the development of Nolan Gorman and their lack of pitching that has come through the pipeline. All totally reasonable concerns. But I feel like we keep hearing from people that the Cardinals previously were developing all these players, like 2011 is what a lot of people will point to, and that they're not doing that right now. Are the players they're producing right now, Alex, all that much different than what they had with David Freese and John Jay and Daniel Descalso and Alan Craig? Like, these guys are the reincarnation of those players. What you're missing is Albert Pujols, who in 2011 had an OPS plus of 150, and Matt Holliday, who also had an OPS plus of 150, and Lance Berkman, who had an OPS plus that season of 165.
Yeah, those are pretty good.
That's what you're missing. You're producing from within your organization that connective tissue that every winning team needs. You're not producing or acquiring superstar level talents that produce at that level.
Well, and you acquired them in Goldie and Arenado, but you didn't capitalize on the small
100%.
window that you had, which was on the pitching side. Like, you're right. Like, they have never developed that star. So they went out. Now, the Oscar Taveras thing, it's the unknown, because that was supposed to be that guy. And, of course, the unfortunate injury or death that he had. But then it's like you started to trade for them. And Jason Hayward never became it. Marcell Ozuna didn't become it that the Cardinals thought he was going to. And then they veered in a different direction. They went the Tyler O'Neill route. And they're like, well, he'll be that guy for us. And then he couldn't stay healthy. And now you've gotten to the point where it's like, well, Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman are those guys. And now you're getting into the concern of the development that has stunted there. But yeah, I mean, you've gone different directions in different times as a Cardinals team, and you failed on every front, whether it was drafting, signing, or trading. All of them have failed for you. But those are just one guy we're talking about. They've had a system of role players that they've been churning out since the Memphis Mafia. You've got a lot of the Memphis Mafia on your roster right now. We were talking in the office. Alan Craig is Alec Burleson's Spider-Man meme. Like, they're the guys for you. So it is just that star for the Cardinals, and unfortunately, it just seems they've never been able to get it right.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing, I mean, outside of, we've talked about it, them cutting payroll probably more likely than not because of their RSN situation, they're too scared to make trades now. Like, they have a bunch of pieces. I mean, we just ran through what we think is Memphis Mafia 2.0. They've got a ton of talent on the major league team. What they are missing is a star, but they don't want to go trade for the star. They don't want to go pay the star that could be on the free agent market. Like, if they wanted to this offseason, they could go out and they could probably bring in like a Pete Alonso to be star number 2 with Wilson Contreras. Boom, now you've got the 1-2 punch that you've always had. You would have Sonny Gray as your ace at the top end of that rotation. Then it just becomes a question of, do we need a number 2 or another bat more importantly? I mean, you're right there. You're right there to potentially do where you build upon what was a season where you had, 83 wins, 84 wins. You could build upon that and easily be looking at the team going into next year going, okay, I can see how you're like 87 and just need like a tweak at the deadline to get yourself to 90 to fight for the division. And instead, they're just going to kick the can down the road and say it's time for a rebuild.
From the 636, last thing on this, guys, the ability to identify guys like Beltran, Holliday, Berkman, etc. is really the difference between that team and the team that we have today. Mo can no longer make those shrewd moves like that. Also, it's worth noting, this comes again from the 636, Burleson not as good as at this point as Craig was. Craig was much better offensively and had insane numbers with runners in scoring position. Craig was the best player of the guys that we mentioned there. Alan Craig was a very good hitter, he just ran into injuries, and we know what happened from there. But early in his career, he was a very, very good major league hitter. 300-plus hitter every season, hit for a little bit of power as well. I'm not trying to diminish what he was. But the Cardinals have some really good hitters on this team. Like, if I told you next year Ivan Herrera put up some Alan Craig-like numbers, I don't think anybody would bat an eye at it with how good his bat is right now. They're missing the superstars. They're missing Holliday, Berkman, Pujols. That's what they're missing. And they are betting right now the best way to be able to go get those guys is to develop them from within. And they're betting right now that their best way to be able to get them is like 5 years from now. That's scary to me. Because if you're betting that you don't have that guy currently in your minor league system because he screwed up so much with Gorman and Walker that it's just too late right now, whew, boy, better be right with J.J. Weatherholt. That guy better be a superstar. And that's putting too much on him. It is at this point in his career.
And he's coming through a system that already lacks the development tools that they need.
Well, the hope is that they'll have
them in
fix
place
it quick,
for
him next season. We'll see what that looks like. All right, he's Alex.
Go well.
He's Alex the T-Bone on BK. Coming
Cardinals
up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. If you guys have a scenario, we will tell you if we are in or out here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this one. I've got one for you guys. In or out, the Kansas City Chiefs will not win the AFC this year after the Rashee Rice injury yesterday.
Out, because they're going to trade for Devontae Adams.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I don't know if they're going to be able to
trade for Devontae Adams.
Ooh. They need a quarterback first.
Yeah, true.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
I think the Chiefs might trade for Amari Cooper, though.
It doesn't matter. Put the name that you'd like. They're going to get an elite wide receiver that's going to help them win the Super Bowl. So, out.
Yeah, I'm out as well.
They're still going to.
Nobody in the AFC is good.
Who's the team that's going to beat them? I don't see anybody in the AFC that's going to beat them.
Texans suck. Bengals suck. Ravens suck. Bills might be okay, but didn't look good last night.
Ravens looked good last night.
I still don't buy them.
Yeah,
they still can't protect Lamar.
Tell me who the quarterback is of the Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm with you guys.
When that guy gets hurt, let's have a conversation.
Now, to be fair, he has been mostly bad this year.
Yeah, I don't. You know,
he's got nobody to throw to.
No, let's be honest about the Chiefs' offense right now. Mahomes is bored.
Well, that's
okay.
True.
He's gonna wake up when it's about that time of the season when he starts to get that little chill from the fall weather turning. He's gonna go. You know what? It's time for me to turn it on so we can get in playoff mode.
Thanksgiving is when he turns
it on. You guys both think the Chiefs will end up in the Super Bowl this year?
They're fine.
Yeah,
no Rashee Rice, no Hollywood Brown.
They'll
be fine.
Isaiah Pacheco's still missing half the season, by the way.
They'll be fine.
Kareem Hunt looked good yesterday.
Carson Steele
did.
Carson Steele stinks, but Kareem Hunt looked good.
Of course he did. He'll carry them until they can trade for their wide receiver. Then the wide receiver will come in and save the day. And then Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be a hero in one of the playoff games and be like, where the hell did this come from?
I'm with you guys.
I know how this works.
I assumed that there would be more pessimism coming off of yesterday's miraculous win. They looked terrible for the most part in that game. Defense is still really good, but okay. I guess we're all on the same page. Chiefs still going to the Super Bowl. That's crazy.
Alex? Guys, in or out, the next star for the Cardinals will come via the Ryan Helsley trade.
Out.
Yeah, I'm out. I don't know if the next star is going to come from internally, but
they're going to have to buy one.
Yeah, I don't think it'll come from the Helsley trade. I'm interested to know what they're going to target in that kind of trade, though. Is it going to be lower end prospects to kind of give yourself time to kind of revamp this system, or is it going to be guys that are closer to Major League ready because you don't trust your system and you have to invest all of this money into it? But I'm out. I don't know if the guy they get from the Helsley trade will be the one that I'll circle. It's like that's the superstar.
Timo?
In or out? I think I brought this one up about a month ago. Now I'm even more curious your guys' response to it. In or out, the Cardinals home opener will not be a sellout crowd.
Out.
It's too much of a...
Everybody goes to it.
St. Louis staple. Yep. It'll be a sellout.
Every day. They get to see the Hall of Famers, the Clydesdales.
The crowd will diminish very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Day 2 will not be a sellout, but opening day will be.
I'm saying it. I think there's going to be a lot of hate for when it comes down. I mean, guys, they're going to screw up this press conference somehow at 2 o'clock. I don't know how.
Yeah, but
they're terrible at this thing called PR.
Yeah, but opening day, people forget about the hate of the current team because they get to live the past. And I think that's you get to bring your kids. It's an opening day tradition. My kid was at opening day 2025. I don't think people care about Mo in the front office for that day and that day only.
That's where I'm at. I'll be there. I'll be there with Luca. It's going to become our annual tradition. Me and Luca and Kara go together and we go watch Cardinals baseball. It's a cool thing, honestly. I don't blame anybody, even if you're the most angry customer in the world, for thinking that's a cool thing that you can do, spending time with your kids. It's a cool tradition, man. All right, from the 314, guys, in or out, Michael McGreevy will have the lowest ERA among the Cardinals starters next year.
Well, considering I think their starters are going to be Michaelis, Matz, Fetty, Palante, I'll go in because I'm optimistic, and this kid may be good.
It is a pretty low bar to clear if that's the rotation. I'll still say out. I think he's going to end up putting up Michaelis-esque numbers, but more of in the range of the low 4s ERA. I think the guy who's going to have the best ERA in that rotation is Palante. There's nothing to say what Palante did this season, and we've got a bigger sample size unlike McGreevy. There's nothing to say what Palante did this season isn't sustainable. So I would say out, I think, is going to be Palante.
He's going to suffer from a lot of errors at first base, though, when Paul Goldschmidt's not there.
Hit the target. Win.
McGreevy might be pretty decent, but I'm not going to say he's going to have the lowest ERA on this among the starters. There will be games where it doesn't look good.
Drew Rom will.
Yeah. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. In or out, guys, the Cardinals will keep Turner Ward next year.
In.
The coaching staff is back.
Which is, talk about bad at PR. We talked about this on Friday, because there's nothing to look at Turner Ward's resume and say, aha, that guy should be brought back.
I think that's why people don't like Oli, is because he sticks with the guys even when they're not showing signs of success.
Guys, in or out, Mizzou will end up as a top 5 team at some point this year.
Basketball?
That, I would say, is even less likely.
Yeah.
I think there's a decent chance they end up in the top 5 prior to that Alabama game. If they win this weekend against Texas A&M, they're an underdog, by the way, in that game. Slight underdog. UMass, Auburn. Auburn is, they're terrible. Be 7-0 going into that game against Alabama. Texas has, I think, Georgia between now and then. Yeah, they've got Georgia, so one of those 2 teams will lose. That'll bounce them out of the top 5. Tennessee, I think, has a game against Alabama between now and then.
Oregon's got Ohio State this weekend, or next weekend, I think.
Yeah, so I think there's a decent chance that Mizzou's in the top 5 by that Alabama game, and then they'll probably be bounced out of the top 5 after that Alabama game.
Yeah, that's where I'd be as well.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, I don't see it.
End of season, no. But I think they've got a shot to kind of get to that number 5 spot, so I'd say in.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for in or out. Guys, in or out, the Cardinals will be 6th in the area in interest among teams behind the Blues, City, Mizzou football, Illinois football, and the Battlehawks after this rebuild. Out.
Yeah, out.
I will be curious to see what the level of interest is in the Cardinals if next year they win like 73 games. With a full youth movement, no real stars, the young position players
Hard
don't take
part
a
is
step.
there's just nothing that competes with that baseball in the middle of summer.
Yeah.
The honest answer is just people stop watching.
Yeah.
Just like it's not another team that replaces it. It's just other stuff. You take your
Summertime
kids
is
to
the time
go,
off.
Go to the jungle gym. Like, just do other stuff with your time instead of watching, caring, talking about the Cardinals.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll say out. I don't think they fall that far, but I think you're right. It just lose interest and you go do something else.
I think it becomes a pastime for people to where you're spending $3 to go to the ballpark and you could go as a family, but it's not any investment in the Cardinals.
Yeah, you don't really. You kind of show up and you don't even know what the record is.
Mm-hmm.
You show up and you're like, oh, hey, they're 20 games below 500. Oh, yeah, that kind of checks out. Yeah.
There's less engagement and more of just like a passive.
It's not, did the Cardinals win or lose when we win? It's just, hey, I took my kid to the Cardinals game. Took the family to the Cardinals game. It was a night out for us.
For an hour.
I don't think Fredbird. I don't think that City can surpass them, but I do think it's a big opportunity for City to kind of re-engage the casual fan coming off of a bad year, and I think they've got a chance to be pretty good next year.
Tough time for them to struggle this year because now's would have been the time to have last year's this season.
Yeah.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, how many of the Cardinals veterans are likely to be back next year? We'll count them off for you next year on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendricks here. They Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals beat the San Francisco Giants yesterday, wrapping up their regular season as they finished the year 83-79. And today they hold their end-of-season press conference, and you'll be able to hear it here live on 101 ESPN, and it will start at 2 o'clock. The Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I think that's going to be John Mozeliak's number one priority over the next 4 to 5 months. It's going to be, see what you can get for Sonny Gray, see what you can get for Wilson Contreras, and this one's going to hit fans hard. See what you can get for Ryan Helsley. His value is never higher than it is right now. He's about to get a big raise in arbitration. After that, he's going to get a big raise in free agency. If you're going to be a team that's going to be around 81, I'm not so sure you need a closer. If you can turn him into 3 prospects, you probably look to do that.
That was John Denton earlier today on the morning show with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, the free agents that the Cardinals have heading into this offseason include Paul Goldschmidt, Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, Matt Carpenter, Andrew Kittredge, Keenan Middleton, and others. Trade options for the Cardinals. Guys that make big money include Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Sonny Gray, Miles Michaelis, Ryan Helsley, among potentially others. How many of that second group of players are you currently expecting back next season? Arenado, Contreras, Sonny, Michaelis, Helsley. Out of those 5, how many are you currently anticipating will be back on the roster for opening day of 2025?
2. And it's not the 2 you think that you want back.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Miles Michaelis and Nolan Arenado.
Bingo! Yahtzee!
That's who I had.
I think Helsley's an easy one. Like, that one could get moved. I think Sonny Gray could be easy. Now, it's a lot of money. I wonder if the Cardinals eat some of it. But that one, because of how he pitched this season, seems like it could be easy. The Wilson Contreras one, I'm kind of on the fence because I don't know if somebody is going to pay what he is making on top of him being injured this season, which I know were just 2 freak injuries. I don't know if somebody is going to pay for that. Again, do the Cardinals eat salary on that one? So mine would say, I'd put the over-under at 2.5, but I would still take the under. I think they find a way to move on from it.
I actually think Wilson is a good contract.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd bring him back.
Not for the Cardinals. I'm saying if I'm another team, even if you don't view him as a catcher, and I think at this point he has made himself into a more than adequate catcher behind the plate. But if you were a team that said, we don't want him behind the plate, we just need a bat, Wilson Contreras is a really good hitter, man. Over the last 2 seasons, he's been almost 30% above league average, and if you include his final season in Chicago with that, it's like an 830 OPS, really high on base, gets on base about 36% of the time, and consistently is a 20 home run hitter. Dude, that'll play. Like, if you're the Astros and you end up losing Bregman this offseason, just plug that guy into the middle of your lineup. He helps you out a ton. Maybe the Cardinals have to eat a few $1,000,000 and it's like a 3-year, $45 million deal for another team. That's a great contract. You can definitely not only move on from that money, I think you could get a pretty decent return for Wilson Contreras at this point. It's not going to be a ton, but a real return for him.
The hard part is it feels like nobody around Major League Baseball wanted that guy when he was available to everyone, and now you're paying him what the Cardinals paid him.
No doubt. Yeah, I think you'll probably have to eat a little bit of money if you want a real return.
If I'm the Cardinals, I'm going to keep that guy.
I agree.
I'd keep him over Nolan Arenado because, this whole thing of, Nolan Arenado's here. Now I understand the money and the contract are tied to it, and he's got his discretion of where he's going to go. You've got a guy who's willing to be a leader in the clubhouse and has got a fiery side to him in Wilson Contreras, and you've got another guy who just this season, after being here for 4 years, is like, yeah, I'll take some of these young guys under my wing. That's not a dude I want around a future team moving forward.
And beyond that, set aside all of the pouty attitude or any of the off-field stuff, right? Just look at playing time. Just at-bats. If you're doing a true youth movement and you want to find out what you have internally, well, Nolan Gorman's probably more of a third baseman than the second baseman long-term. Let's find out. See, once and for all next year, hey, we've got 600 plate appearances available for you at third base next year. And what does that do? It opens up second base for Brendan Donovan. What does that do? It opens up left field every day for Lars Nootbaar, which opens up right field every day for Jordan Walker, which opens up now, because Goldie's gone, first base every single day for one of Luken Baker or Alec Burleson. And now you've got a DH slot that's open up every day as well, and you can filter through all of these guys with that DH spot. Thomas Ajacey roams around the infield. He's getting a couple of opportunities a week at third base, at second base, etc. For Wilson Contreras, the one place that you could convince me as to why you would move on from him, Alex, is because of that playing time. If they want to find out once and for all what they have with Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pajes behind the plate, that's the way you do it. Because now, potentially, Ivan Herrera could play 2 out of every three games as a DH and 1 out of every 3 games behind the plate. And now you've got an everyday player just playing at 2 different positions, effectively. So I think you can make that work, but it would require you to move on from Wilson Contreras to do so.
Well, let's also call a spade a spade. He didn't get traded because he called out the front office.
I don't think that's why they'll do it. I don't, like, Nolan Arenado did that. And they didn't. I don't think that that's why you trade him. I think you trade Wilson Contreras because of the direction you're going.
Yeah.
I would buy that. The Sonny Gray thing is the money, purely. Like, you think that you're not going to be as good as you need to be over the next 2 years to make the $30 million a season worth it. The Helsley thing is the return. If you're not going to be as good as you want to be next year with him on an expiring deal and you can get a real return back, it makes sense to trade
Helsley should be at the top of the priority list in terms of trading because that does a couple of things for your organization.
Yeah, I think Helsley should be number 1 because of the return. Contreras and Arenado should be 2, 3 in my opinion. I'd like to bring Contreras back, but because of the playing time and because of the direction you're going, it doesn't really make sense to bring him back. And Arenado, in my opinion, should be right there with him because, again, third base is a spot that you should be looking at and saying, we need to do something different there. What I'm curious about, though, is if they are prioritizing money, are they willing to eat some for a player to play for another team?
And for multiple years, because Sonny Gray is, what, 3 years?
2 years on Sonny, 3 years on both Arenado and Contreras.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to eat for a...
But it's sunk cost. Like, you're paying that no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And what you could have is for example, Arenado, 3 years, $74 million is what remains on his current contract. If you trade him and you send, let's call it $30 million with him to go elsewhere, well, you're not having to pay 45. That's meaningful. Like, yes, you have to send money for him to go play elsewhere, but it's, $5 million a year, $10 million a year, whereas you're getting down $15 million a year?
That feels like too much forward thinking.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do that. Genuinely, I don't know how they would.
He's the one that I don't know what they're going to do with the Michaelis one. For me, it feels like the Patrick Corbin one, where it's the final year. Why eat money when we can just have him here? Honestly, we'll need somebody to be kind of a leader / an innings eater for the rotation, or a guy that posts every day if we're going to have this youth movement. He's the one that, like, if you told me today, is Miles Michaelis a Cardinal? My answer is yes. I expect him to finish out that deal. Arenado is one that is interesting because of the money that you're talking about in that meeting. I think there's a chance they can get out of most of the Gray deal and most of the Contreras deal. They may have to chip in a couple $1 million. Arenado, they're going to have to eat a significant portion of it because he's not the guy that's on that contract. He's not the superstar that he's getting paid like to be. He's now more of a Brendan Donovan type hitter than anything else.
Worse, but yes,
yeah,
he's not as productive as Brendan Donovan at this point. I want to go in and look at who some of the third basemen are that are getting paid right now, and how they compare to Nolan Arenado, like just the pure glove third baseman, because if you ended up making him
what'd Chapman get?
I think he got 20, right?
20 is either 20 or 25. I was thinking 25.
He's at 25.
Yeah.
But Chapman was a better, more productive hitter this year.
Sure, but he's always been known as more of a glove first guy than anything else.
I'm trying to think of who would be that glove first third base. Brian Hayes maybe would be the closest comp, but he's young. Yeah. There's not really a great comparison as to what you'd be acquiring if you're another team in Nolan Arenado at this point in his career, because he's also older. What if DJ LeMahieu might be a good comparison? He's 15 a year, contact hitter. Arenado, for all of his faults, is a contact hitter at this point in his career. Would somebody be willing to take on $15 million a year for Nolan Arenado? Maybe. And if they are, you'd have to include $30 million with him to go elsewhere, 10 a year.
Yeah.
If you're the Cardinals, in my opinion, you should be willing to do that.
I'm with you. I would be open-minded to that idea. I just don't know who the team is that's taking him. I mean, we mentioned $15 million. It's still a decent chunk of change for any team to take on, unless you're like the Yankees, but the Yankees don't need a third baseman.
Well, and Arenado decides where he's going.
Yeah.
It's not like you could find a team that's saying, we'll take it. Arenado's going to one place. It's the Dodgers. And the Dodgers ain't taking that.
Yeah. They got Muncy, and he's worth more in third.
I mean, like it or not, the Cardinals have Nolan Arenado until the end of that contract.
All right. Yeah.
Do it. Is there another team? Can we maybe make this work another way?
Hey, man, the West Coast is big. It's big, man. San Francisco.
Is that true? Do you feel that?
But the West Coast is big? Yeah, it's huge.
Do you feel like it's just the What about Seattle? He probably like the Pacific Northwest, right?
Oh, my, no.
Does Nolan Arenado seem like a Pacific Northwest kind of guy?
Probably a fisherman.
Nah, man. No, he said he likes Domino's. Remember, we talked to him.
Sacramento? Sacramento's great in the summer, I heard.
Who's in Sacramento? Oh.
The old, don't call me Oakland A's.
Yeah, because he'd really love to go there.
Yeah.
No chance.
Just keep saying the Dodgers.
Angels? They don't have a third baseman.
They
do have a third baseman.
No. They have a guy that it says third base next to his name, but he doesn't play
If you're the
there.
Angels, you want to go get another third baseman who's probably not going to
he's cheap.
Be happy?
Cardinals are paying his whole salary. The last time that the Cardinals did this, it was with Dexter Fowler, and they sent him to the Angels.
And then he was off with the Angels after that.
Yeah.
Played like 3 games.
Cardinals can do it again.
I'm done.
Hey, Nolan.
Dexter did what Patrick Berglund did when he got to trade to Buffalo.
Colorado.
That really won't
They've
happen.
got a better third baseman.
El Hiris Montero?
No. McMahon.
Yeah. McMahon.
Dang, sorry, man.
Better.
He's here.
All right.
I'm Mr. 95%. I like it.
So,
do you?
On the Paul Goldschmidt
3 years
front,
ago.
Bob Nightingale reported yesterday the Milwaukee Brewers are keeping a close eye on Cardinals veteran first baseman Paul Goldschmidt if the Cardinals opt not to bring him back. Quote, they believe there's still plenty in the tank, end quote.
Oh, and they're going to fix it.
He's for sure hitting 30 home runs next year.
He's getting MVP votes next year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then everyone will be like, the Cardinals couldn't figure out what was wrong with Paul Goldschmidt.
And somehow
They'd be right.
we'll still have that
They would
hitting.
be right.
And somehow that hitting coach that couldn't fix Goldie will still be here. You know? It's fine.
He's going to be like first half Rhys Hoskins.
Oh, would it shock you at all if he just finished with the slash line of Rhys Hoskins next year?
He'll be better than what Hoskins was this year. Hoskins didn't have a very good year.
He's 2% below league average. What's Goldie?
I mean, basically that.
Yeah. Like, I would, if you told me just copy Rhys Hoskins, if I copied and
Goldie
pasted
would be better.
Rhys Hoskins' stat line and just said, put it on Goldie, I'd go, yeah.
Hoskins'
checks out.
first 3 months of the season, he had an OPS of about 850. That's what I think Goldie's going to be for them next year.
I will put money down.
For the whole year?
Yeah.
I will put money down.
I absolutely believe.
I don't think Goldie can play for a full season.
I will put money down right now that he will be an all-star in whatever team he plays for next year.
Oh, I don't feel that way.
I do.
It's got to be the right situation.
I mean,
but if he ends up in
50
Milwaukee,
OPS.
I believe that they would. I think they would get him to be what he was last year for the Cardinals. 810 OPS by the end of the year, 20 to 25% above league average.
He can't play for a full year. I mean, he just went through a 4-month slump. A 4-month slump. That doesn't get fixed completely.
We'll see.
I'm with you. He's going to have a good year. He ain't putting up an 850 OPS. He ain't putting up an 810 OPS. He's going to finish below 800 in Milwaukee.
We can make a bet on this on opening day next year. I will be fascinated to see where he ends up. The Brewers feel like the perfect spot for him. If he gets like a 1-year, $15 million deal, Brewers make all the sense in the world. They'll just replace the Rhys Hoskins deal.
I think he's going to Houston.
That would make sense too. And he will have a huge year there. He'll have 30-plus home runs in Houston with that short porch. It'll be amazing. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we're going to dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We'll do a quick junk drawer today. Alex, over the weekend, I went to watch one of our friends. Their son was playing a soccer game. Have you gone to any of these in attendance for a youth sport? In recent years, not your own.
Not like an actual game, no. The only thing I've done is I saw my daughter, she did soccer like it was basically like practice for toddlers. Sure. But in terms of like a game, the closest thing I've gone to is I went to see my niece do a tumbling competition. But
it's incredible.
Yeah.
So at this game, there was one kid that was basically Pele compared to everybody else.
There always is.
Huh?
There always is. There's always one kid that's like, how is he playing out here with all these other kids?
It looked like everybody else was running in slow motion and like running around the grass and just kind of circling around one another. And then this kid would just emerge from this, this mass group of individuals. And he would somehow emerge with the ball sprinting down the field and just kicked the ever-living crap out of the ball. Scored like 6 goals in the course of the game. Nobody was keeping score. Nobody knew what was happening. They would like randomly sub in and out. No real reason as to why. I can't wait to watch Luka play soccer for these kinds of experiences, man.
I've already told Katie that I want to put our oldest Adelaide into T-ball this upcoming spring because she'll be in that age group to where she can play it now, because I just want to go for the pure chaos. I want to just sit in one of those lawn chairs behind home plate and just watch all of these kids just pure chaos with T-ball.
There was one kid that was sitting in the grass just
chilling,
picking it up.
Oh, man, that was me when I was a kid in baseball. I'd sit in the outfield and I'd pick up dirt and I'd just throw it. My dad would be like, stop playing with the dirt.
Another one was looking at his mom, and I kid you not, these were true words that were said during the game. Mom, I'm too tired for this.
Yeah.
The ball was on the other side of the field. He's over by us.
That's my kind of kid.
His mom, looking sideways. The goal is behind him, his own goal. Mom!
That's my kind of kid right there. I don't want to do this anymore.
Oh, it was great. I was like, I am also tired to be here, but I respect that you are willing to vocalize.
My concern with our middle daughter, Emma, she's got that toddler anger streak in her. I don't know if I want to put her in team sports. I'm worried she's going to go out there and just annihilate somebody.
Every team needs an enforcer, man. At every
she was
sport.
playing in the backyard with Adelaide over the weekend when we got home. And I have one of those like little plastic T-ball things, and I put the ball on. Adelaide would swing at it, and then Emma's like, "I want to try." And I'm like, "All right, cool." And handed the bat and the ball. She takes a bat and then turns and just starts looking at who she can go swing at.
That's Luka.
I'm like, "Oh gosh, no."
Oh, he's an enforcer too.
Oh, dude, the golf clubs are just swinging wildly. He's now become a.
Oh yeah, we've taken the golf clubs and put them up on our on our fireplace mantle because people get hurt.
Color guard where they're like spinning the batons and what? That's Luka.
Oh.
He just spins them wildly, and then the dog comes over to see what's going on.
And then the dog gets whacked in the face.
It's not good. We're working on it. Coming up next.
We're working on it. Hey, man, it's going to be there for a while.
What would you like to learn from the Cardinals in this press conference? We are now 1 hour away, officially, 1 hour away from the Cardinals holding their press conference, the end-of-season press conference that they didn't hold last year. They are holding it this year. It's coming up in about an hour. What do you want to learn from them? 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We'll give you some of what we want to hear. Here's some of what you want to learn from the Cardinals coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends over at Classic Air Care who have been making people comfortable since 1926. In 2 weeks, I've got my maintenance agreement checkup for our furnace. Before we flip that heater on for the cold winter that is coming, I always have Classic Air Care to come out. Now, I'm a part of their maintenance agreement, and what this is, I've been a part of this since 2016 because I love what they offer. Twice a year before the heat in the summer and before the cold in the winter, they come out to check the HVAC, to check the furnace, make sure it's good to go, clean it out, fine-tune it, make sure it's going to get us through the season. It's a part of the maintenance agreement that they do. But, and here's the key with it all, if there's any issues in between those two visits every year, you are at the top of the priority list because you're a part of the maintenance agreement. So if something goes wrong, if you have an older unit like I had, they come out, first thing, get you on the schedule, and they have that problem fixed for you. It's why you need to be a part of this maintenance agreement, because they will get you through the cold winter and the hot summer. Give them a call today, or you can schedule online and sign up for that maintenance agreement. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. It's Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Three 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. What do you want to learn from the Cardinals in this press conference today? We got this text from the 314. If you listen to you guys, you'd think it's already settled. Just spent the last 2 hours trying to convince me that we already know what's going to be said. Sir, madam, that is not what we did. We talked about what has been said. John Mozeliak has already made public comments to Derek Gould, and there was already reporting that had been done by Katie Wu. So I'm not telling you what's going to be said, what has been, or what will be said, what they will try to convince you of today at the press conference. But I think we got a pretty good insight into that, a preview of it based upon what was said by Derek Gould and what was reported by Derek Gould in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today. So that is what the basis was for our conversation earlier. Now we are previewing the press conference that will take place coming up in about an hour. And I would love to hear from the text line on what they want to hear for this. Alex, for you, what do you want to learn? What do, like, a lot of this won't happen because we know how this goes. But what would you, in a best-case scenario, like to hear from the Cardinals coming up at 2 o'clock? And don't say that John Mozeliak's fired. That's not realistic. They're not going to do that. But, like,
well, I'm out then. Don't ask me.
Yeah, I'm out too.
Sorry, man.
Understanding Mo's back, Ollie's back, Heimblum's in charge of the minor league operations, like setting that as the baseline. What would you like to learn coming up in an hour?
It's odd because I don't know how much I can learn from this, because it feels like this team, I want to see more action after what they say, but I want direction. I want some type of direction. Like, sure, you can sit there and say, like, look, our minor league has gotten into shambles and we need to adjust that. What does that look like? I don't need a play-by-play of it all, but I need a year-by-year plan. I need to know where you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years from now, how you're going to adjust this minor league system, how long it's going to take to implement into your team mentality, and what the direction and what this means for your major league roster. I do want direction. I got to be honest with you guys, though. I don't really care what John Mozeliak has to say. I want to hear what Bill DeWitt Jr. has to say. I want to hear everything that comes out of his mouth, and I want honesty. Because Mo, as much as we talk about Mo and blame Mo, he's only able to do so much. Bill DeWitt Jr. is the one that needs to be getting all of the questions right now of what does this look like? How concerned are you with this RSN situation? Why did the minor league system fall apart? Because for the longest time, the Cardinals' way has been develop from within. We don't want to spend on the free agent market or trade our young players because we want to develop within. He's the one that I want to hear everything from today.
One thing that I'm curious about, and it kind of ties into the RSN situation, and I hope that they get asked this, and I hope that they give an honest answer about it. Is this rebuild in quote unquote good faith? Is this are they going with this youth movement because it is what they actually believe is best for the organization, or is it just a save on money and we had to cut money because of the RSN? I'm okay with either answer, by the way.
Yeah.
But I want to know what the true reason is for them to be pushing into this whatever it is, because they're a playoff team a year ago with this record, guys. If they were a playoff team this year, was this the same outcome that was going to happen? Were they just going to say, you know what, RSN situation is bad, we need to go youth movement. We made our final push, it didn't work out, or it did work out, whatever happened in the postseason, it's time for us to cut some payroll. I want to know if this is actually in kind of good faith. Is this the decision of this is what is best for the franchise, or is this, hey, this is the direction the franchise had to go because of financials?
That's something I'm curious about as well. I just want to hear, and this is, we've got a lot of texts that say something to this effect. Just be open and transparent about what's going on. Just tell us what's real. Don't lie to us. Don't come out and say, hey, we were forced into this because you didn't come to the games. Like, don't do that. But set it all up front. Hey, we screwed up. We didn't reinvest in our minor league system after the 2020 COVID season the way that we should have, and that's on us. We made some bad bets with our money in the offseason over the last 5 years. That's on us. We screwed that up. Our pipeline has developed some players, but it did so without developing the star that we clearly need to take us into the next iteration of what Cardinals baseball is supposed to be, and that's on us. And what we're going to do now is try to reinvest in ourselves. We're going to pour money, pour effort, pour time into these minor leagues, and we are going to go with a youth movement at the big league level because of the Bally situation, because of the revenue. We don't blame you for not coming to the games, but the reality is over the last couple of years, the product has not been up to par. We don't blame you for not coming. We wouldn't have come to those games either, but that does have an effect on what our bottom line is, and therefore we're going to have to peel things back a little bit with the payroll. I think everybody could hear that and be like, yeah, I get it. Don't like it. Wish that somebody else was in charge of making these kinds of changes. And then beyond that, be open and honest about what the timeline is and what the expectations are for who the next president of baseball operations is going to be. Is this a situation where Bloom is basically auditioning on the job?
I was going to say, do you want him to name who the guy is going to be, though, like I think Army did with Steen?
I think it depends. If it is going to be Chaim Bloom, if that is the current plan within the organization, which, I mean, from all the reporting that we've seen, it seems like that's going to be the case, then they should say that today.
I agree.
If it's not, if Bloom doesn't want to be a president of baseball operations and he just wants to be in charge of the farm, they should also say that.
You need to put that plan in place.
We are going to have a new president of baseball operations at this point next year, but for now, Mo's going to be in charge because he understands the organization and he's going to get everything ready, set for the next guy that's in charge, and we're going to be doing a full search nationally for who that guy is going to be. So I think that's kind of how I would view what they're going to do today.
Somebody texted in, sorry, T-Bone, somebody texted in and said that they want an apology. I don't think this team's apologizing to anybody.
I don't think any franchise would apologize. Yeah. I mean, I know technically, what's his name, Reinsdorf for the White Sox did yesterday. That was crap. Let's just
that
be
one
honest.
kind of warranted an apology.
Yeah,
I don't think you need an apology. I think you need to hear, we screwed up.
Yeah.
Just accountability.
Yeah.
Not an apology, but some accountability would be nice. Let's get to some of these from the text line real quick. From the 636. Guys, I just want some sort of timeline and transparency. Do you guys think that they will give us any kind of a timeline on, like, because this is something that Army did, where he said, hey, you know, it's going to take us a little bit, but within the next few years, we're planning to be a contender again.
I don't
think that the Cardinals will do something like
I don't think so, because I don't think they have a timeline. I don't think they know the direction. I think they know it's screwed up. I think they know they need to fix it. But it kind of feels like the Cardinals are doing the shrug emoji, to where it's like, well, we know we've got Chaim Bloom, who's going to help fix our minor league system. But from there, we don't know. We just know we need to get rid of money on the major league roster, spend money on the minor league roster, and then from there we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I don't think they'll give a timeline. I think it's twofold. One, I'm not sure they know who the next Pobo is. So it's hard to give a timeline when you don't even know who's running the organization beyond 2025. And the second reason is the moment you put a timeline on it, now the pressure's on. Now the pressure's on. If you say, hey, we're going to be competitive in 3 to 5 years, well, okay, year 3, there's going to be expectations. I think the best case scenario for the Cardinals, whether fans like it or not, is to not give a timeline. To just say, hey, we're going to kind of reset everything here, and we're going to kind of go about our business and just keep pushing off on giving a timeline until you absolutely are certain of where you are at as an organization.
I think they should put some kind of a timeline on it. I do. Now, once you do that, you're held to that timeline.
And that's why I wouldn't do it.
And Mo can't put a timeline on it because I don't think he's not the one in charge.
That's actually why I think he can. Oof. Because if he puts a timeline on it,
it's a lot of pressure on the new Pobo, though.
It is what it is. Look across baseball. The teams that do this, you can see what the timeline typically is. 3 to 5 years. It's 3 to 5 years. It should be shorter because the Cardinals have already produced. I know they talk all about how they are not producing big league talent right now. It's just not true. They are. They're not producing stars. You look at the books, the way that they're set up right now, man, if you get rid of Arenado or Contreras, everything money-wise is off of your books within the next 2 years. Like 3 years from now, it's a completely clean slate other than arbitration guys. So you could revamp this thing in 2 years. What I think the timeline should be, next year is a full reset for the roster, for the organization. 2 years from now, you kind of find out where you're at. 3 years from now, you should be contending again. 3 years from now, this team should be back into the postseason and should be pushing by that point in time. I don't know that they'll do that. I don't know if they'll say that, but I think that should be what the timeline is.
And that's if this young core is what we think it is. No, I still think the jury's out on what this young core is.
I don't even think that. I think that you could have, like 3 years from now, J.J. Weatherholt might be a significant part of the core. And he doesn't have to be a star. You could go out and sign a star.
Well,
most
teams could go out and sign a star.
I hear you, but like, dude, the roster, the money, you're fine. You've got all that you need to be able to go push within the next 3 years. But I don't know. I don't expect that because they're going to do the race model. All right, from the 217. Yes. I want to hear their plan to get back to winning ways. What does it look like? Is it a 2 to 5 year plan? What is this going to be? Somebody from the 309 said, I would love to hear some sort of urgency in the messaging or someone taking accountability and leading the direction. We've seen and heard none of that thus far. You guys think that there will be urgency within their messaging today?
No. I think today is going to be a lot of what fans have already read from Derek Gould and Katie Wu. I think this is going to be a lot of under the hood stuff saying like, look, our minor league system's depleted. We've got to figure this out. I think when it's asked about the major league roster and what the timeline looks like, it's going to be a lot of, well, that's up for discussion depending on how this offseason goes. Our first step is to fix the minor league system. I think there's going to be a lot of gray when they're asked about the major league roster in a timeline.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think they're going to show any sense of urgency. I don't even know how they could show a sense of urgency if they're going to be slashing payroll. Yeah. That's where I just don't know where the urgency would come from. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of, I don't know if ducking and dodging questions on the major league roster is the right word, but I think it will be more focused on, well, we can't do that until we fix this here in the minor league system.
We got a couple other questions that I wanted to get to here before we reveal our pick'em results in the next segment. This is the final week. This was the final week of the first month of the season, which means somebody will be getting punished.
Fun.
And we'll reveal who that's going to be in the next segment. From the 314, I want to know why we're not building on this year. We just had a winning season, 83 wins. In 2006, they went to the playoffs and won the World Series with the 83 wins. Why are they tearing it down this time when in the past that's been something that you would try to build upon? I think that's a more than reasonable question. And that gets back to T-Bone's point of what is the real reason why you're doing this? Is this because you feel the need to go with a youth movement because what you've been doing is not working? Or is this because of the money stuff? The Bally Sports Midwest situation, the lack of ticket revenue that they've had over the last couple of seasons. What is the true genesis as to why you are doing this? If I could ask one question today, and we're not going to be able to get down there because we've got the show until 2. I was hoping that it would be either before or after our show, but it's not going to be. If I could ask one question today, it would be this. You say that there has been reporting, I should clarify. I think this was in Katie's story. There has been reporting that the Cardinals pulled money from their minor league system to essentially subsidize their big league product. They prioritized the big league team with money over investing in the minor leagues. Can you explain that? Explain what some of those decisions were and how they manifested at the big league level. Like, was there we are going to have a payroll of 170 and now it becomes 175 because of the lack of investment at the minor league level? Explain to me specifically how that played itself out with you pulling money from the minors to the big leagues, because it's hard for me to understand that. It's not that expensive to run a minor league operation. The Brewers have one of the biggest minor league operations in baseball, and they don't spend that much at the big league level. The Rays, same thing. They have invested in technology like no other team in Major League Baseball. Guess what? They don't spend at all on their Major League roster. So it's hard for me to understand and to believe that that was the case for the Cardinals without clear and obvious examples of it. So that would be one thing that I would love to hear in the press conference. I don't know that they'll actually answer the question, but I would love to hear what their answer is to that.
Yeah, it just feels so odd to go into a press conference because, again, it feels like the Cardinals have done this to where every press conference you feel like you want to hear something, you hear, and then you're like, okay, but then it doesn't get backed up. It just feels an awful lot. It feels an awful lot like word vomit in terms of they're going to talk, you're going to come away from it and be like, okay, but what really are you trying to accomplish? And maybe it is because behind the curtain, nobody feels like what is going to be taking place is actually the reason why. Like, they're not cutting prices to fix the minor league system. There's other reasons that you're not being told. So it always feels like there's something going on behind your back with this Cardinals team.
We can't leave today's press conference saying, I don't fully understand what they're doing. If that happens, then they might as well not even held this press conference. It would be a failure from the organization, both in what has happened in the last 2 years and with the messaging that needs to be set straight. Because you're right. I mean, we've left a lot of press conferences questioning things, debating whether or not they're actually going to do it. That can no longer be a thing. They cannot exit this press conference, which will probably go, my guess, about 30 minutes. 2:30 today, we shouldn't, here at the end of that press conference, go, wait, what's the plan? It should be pretty freaking clear. We should be able to just break it down tomorrow on the show.
You walked out of the Doug Armstrong press conference. You were like, okay. Now, but again, you walked out and you said, you got to back it up. And for a couple of years, it felt like, oh, what's going on here? But then you finally saw the result this offseason. That's kind of what I mean by this Cardinals press conference.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, we have officially come to the end of our first month of our Pick'em Challenge. Each month, somebody's going to be punished for finishing last within the Pick'em. T-Bone went into the weekend with a massive gap between me and Alex and himself. Was he able to make up that gap, or is he going to be the first one punished? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So each and every week on BK and Ferrario, we go through our pick'em. It's every Friday we will pick our games from that weekend. And the only real selection criteria, got to be against the spread. It's a football game. And it has to be over by the time that we get back on the air on Monday morning. So anything Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, all in play for us against the spread. No props, no over-unders, anything like that. Each week we do 3 games, Alex. And there are 3 points, 2 points, and 1 point available. 6 points in total over the course of the week. So at the end of the month, you got 24 possible points. We went into this weekend, and I was in a really good place. I had 12 points. Alex had 9 points. T-Bone also had 9 points heading into this weekend. So we had to figure out who's going to be where when it comes to the Pick'em Challenge at the end of this week, Alex. You started off hot, slowed down a little bit. T-Bone started off slow, heating up a little bit. Let's start out with me and Alex, a game that we watched last night, and it looked ugly from the very beginning.
1 point play. I am going to go to the undefeated team. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills, plus 2.5, which it's one of those things that you look at and you're like, huh?
I would like to second that pick. I have the Bills as my 3-point play.
He said he was,
as a 2.5 point underdog on the road at the Ravens. I think it's the wrong line.
2nd and 7, Jackson. Lofting for Hill. Touchdown, Baltimore. 3 for 3 to start the night are the Ravens.
What happened?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Baltimore went in like, oh, Ravens stink. We'll beat them. Nope.
That was an embarrassing performance by the run defense. An embarrassing performance by the Bills.
If you wouldn't have picked them, I probably would have covered.
Every time I say this is the wrong line, it ends up going poorly for me.
And both of you said it, by the way.
It did feel that way.
No, I said it was a wrong line. I said it made you go, huh? And then he went in and just doubled down on
Tomato.
The Bills so far this year had been, in my opinion, one of the most impressive teams in the NFL. If not the most impressive team. And then they went into that game yesterday and just totally crapped the bed.
Yeah.
I mean, could not have been any worse. Derrick Henry looked like the guy that we all thought he was going to be with the Ravens. That 87-yard run was when I knew, this ain't going to go my way tonight. Just a terrible performance by the Bills. I feel like that's going to be one of those performances that you look back on 6 weeks from now and say, throw it out. Neither of these teams that was representative of who they are. But bad way to start.
Good stuff.
Bad way to finish the weekend. Good way to start the weekend for me, though. I told you guys, this was the game to watch in college football. Give me Army, 12-point favorite on the road at Temple. We get it started tonight as I extend my lead so far that T-Bone cannot end up beating me.
Daly, quick pitch out. That's Noah short. They want to get short the ball. And you see why. There goes Noah short. 61 yards, Army.
I still think you're using some type of shark to make these bets. I just don't know why you're doing it on one.
Army goes on the road, takes care of business. We don't have to talk about this one any further. My next pick this week was the Chiefs -7. Let's get into this.
He couldn't.
Chiefs are only a 7-point favorite on the road in a place that is not a home environment at all. Give me the Chiefs. I think they win this one by 2 touchdowns. I don't think it's going to be a particularly fun game to watch, but like 27-10, something like that. I think the Chiefs win this one pretty big. Easily cover the 7 points.
1st and goal. He does. P-Ryan. Fighting for it. Gets it. Touchdown, Kansas City.
I didn't take into account the fact that their number 1 wide receiver wouldn't play in this game for the majority of it. Rashee Rice's knee exploded when Patrick Mahomes dove in. What are you doing, Pat? Why are you diving into a pile?
Touchdown, baby.
He dives in, hits the knee, goes backwards. He's probably going to miss the entirety of the season. It was just a blah game. They win by 7. It's a push. I don't get the points for that, but just an ugly game. I hope none of you watched it. It wasn't worth your time.
Yeah. Speaking of ugly games, let's go to my 2-point play. 2-point play. Taking the Texans at home -6. The offense is going to have a bounce back week. Jacksonville stunk. Terrible team.
A play fake. Stroud on the move. Touchdown!
Technically, 2 of the 3 things both things that I said were correct. Jacksonville still stinks.
They're terrible.
And the offense did have a bounce back. 345 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns for C.J. Stroud. This defense sucks.
I think I'm out on the Texans as a Super Bowl contender.
I am.
I want to be really out on them, but because the AFC is not very good right now, I can't be all the way out. But they lack something. I don't know what it is, but they lack something.
Stop. it can't make the big stop. Every time they get the ball back and you're like, oh, okay, here's your opportunity to just punish them.
Man, but
you
even
just
the
give it over.
offense leaves a little something to be desired.
Yeah.
They're not finishing these drives. It's strange. They put up 430 yards of total offense. They averaged more than 6 yards per play yesterday in that game. And yet, 24 points. It's just something feels off, and I can't put my finger on exactly what it is.
It was kind of like the Eagles from a year ago. Because
Little
the Eagles like that, where they'd get to the red zone and then they just couldn't figure it out and they had to settle for a bunch of field goals.
It's just weird because it's like I watched that offense at the end of the game and they were able to drive, but it's that middle portion of the game where the Texans have an opportunity to just bury their opponent, but then they either turn the ball over or the other team gets this big play downfield, and then the Houston Texans just take a step backwards.
Yeah, Mixon is a big injury for them. When he comes back, I do think that's going to help them. They've been trying to do this with Cam Akers, and T-Bone knows that's not what you want to be, where you want to be as an organization, but they should have been better than that. They do not end up covering the spread, so Alex missed his first 2 games over the weekend. T-Bone had another NFL game that he was paying attention to closely.
My 2-point play. I'm going to bank on desperation. We're at that point where they finally turn the season around. The Panthers still stink. Give me Joe Burrow and the offense that looked better last week to figure it out against the crappy Carolina Panthers. I like Cincinnati on the road, -4.5.
And the handoff to the goal line and in Chase Brown with the touchdown.
Certainly wasn't perfect.
No, it wasn't pretty. But
No, I was going to say, a little nerve-wracking there if you were T-Bone.
I had a big play by Jamar Chase. T. Higgins getting back involved. I think the Bengals are eventually going to be fine. The hope for, if you're a Bengals fan, is that it just wasn't too little too late. For T-Bone, it was just enough. They end up covering the spread. He gets his 2 points there, and Alex is in desperation mode. Speaking of that, here is the 1-point play for T-Bone, also an NFL game.
Guys, the Falcons are broken. Kirk Cousins stinks. The Saints +2.5 on the road at the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Saints have a bounce-back game.
I don't like that one, T-Bone.
I hate that pick. I disagree with you entirely. Did you not watch the Falcons against the Chiefs? They looked fine.
Youngway Koo from 58.
Look, man, a win's a win, but that's another one that you can't sit here and brag about being good on.
A classic BK. Did you watch the game? And guess who got the pick right?
I'm sorry, but you can't sit here and pump your fists on that one. Like, come on, man.
All right,
I'm
Alex.
not picking
Win's
winners.
a win. T-Bone got his 2-point play. He got his 1-point play. You have your 3-point play still remaining. Let's see how that went for you.
I'm going back to what got me 3 points last week. Guys, the YOLO offense isn't going to work again. Pittsburgh Steelers.
I looked at this one
the
as well.
Pittsburgh Steelers, man, they're rolling into town, and Anthony Richardson is going to be eating a lot of turf. -1.5. Sure, Steelers no matter what.
Flacco, sidearm delivery to the end zone. He's got his man. It's Downs. Touchdown.
This is...
Don't bet against Joe Flacco.
I think this should just be tossed out as a push because I know I still lose, but... I'm sorry, but I did not plan for the miraculous comeback once again of Joe Flacco. I planned for the Anthony Richardson offense.
I didn't even know Joe Flacco was a Colt.
I didn't either until I saw him walk in, and I'm like, cool, this game's over. So pissed off.
Dude, Jonathan Taylor, clearly not 100% right now. Their quarterback goes down very early in this game. Their defense is terrible. They can't stop the run.
I mean, Joe Flacco walks onto the field.
What
are we
brutal
doing?
Way to lose, man. 0-3 for Alex this week. Let's hear T-Bone's last pick because he's going to gloat right after this one.
I love the Nebraska Cornhuskers on the road at Purdue this week, -10 points. Only a 10-point. Guys, Purdue sucks.
Raul end zone touchdown. Jamal Banks goes back-to-back to his 2 favorite targets. First, it's Nair. Can't get him the ball. Straight back for Banks, and yes, sir.
Yes, sir, indeed.
Couldn't even enjoy
28-10 was their final.
Couldn't even.
T-Bone was sweating there for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well,
this was a very close game until the
behind
fourth
the curtain,
quarter.
I had play-by-play this weekend, and I look at halftime, and it's 0-0. And I'm like, what the hell happened?
I couldn't even enjoy my weekend in Branson because of you guys.
That was ugly.
No, man, it was a good trip.
All I'm going to say, first place for your boy, and a bunch of my cuts ended up having BK going, you don't watch the games, or Alex, I don't like that one, T-Bone.
Still didn't like that one.
You say that while you're looking up at me, don't you?
Still didn't like that one.
Final tally for the first month in our pick'em. T-Bone finished with 15 points. I finished with 13 points. And Alex, who will be the first one punished this year in our Pick'em Challenge, 9 points over the course of the first month, and 0 for this week to end up with the punishment.
Brutal way to end it too. Yeah, that was a choke job right there. I again didn't plan for Joe Flacco to just completely ruin my weekend.
On Friday, we will have you guys vote for this week's punishment. We've got 2 different choices for you. We'll announce those for you on Friday, and you will be able to vote for them on Twitter. So be excited for that. Keep the lookout for that. Alex Ferrario, the first one that is going to be
Am I getting punished on Friday, or am I getting punished next week?
Punishment next week.
Okay, good. Need to plan accordingly.
Friday, you'll find out what the punishment is.
Okay.
He's Alex T-Bone on BK. It's not surprising that Dvorsky was sent down, but what do you make of the timing, him getting sent down this early? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Tara Hendricks, New York State Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Yesterday, the Cardinals beat the Giants, ending their regular season with an 83-79 record. And coming up in just about 20 minutes or so, the Cardinals will have their regular season press conference. You can hear it here live on 101 ESPN. This sports update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
It's not surprising that Dvorsky was sent down to the AHL. But, Alex, what do you make of the timing? The Blues announced this yesterday. It's very early in camp. I think we both knew pretty early on. I think most Blues fans, reasonable ones, believed that he was going to spend a decent portion of this season at a minimum down in the AHL level. But were you surprised at all that he went down as early as he did?
I guess initially I was when you saw that big list of cuts, because you're kind of thinking, well, Dvorsky's probably going to be one of the last guys cut so he can stay at the NHL level and he can just get as many reps as possible. But then when you sit and think of it, it makes sense. I mean, the Blues have won one preseason game, and it was an overtime one that they won most recently on home ice. And I think Drew Bannister now needs to figure out what his NHL roster looks like for opening night and work out whatever kinks they still have. And like it or not, Dvorsky is just not going to make this roster. I know Bannister spoke with the media after practice today just about those next round of cuts that took place, Dvorsky being one of them, and essentially just said, look, the guy's just going to go to the American Hockey League and learn to be a pro. He's really good with the puck. He's got to learn to play away from the puck, which makes sense when you're 19 years old and you're getting your first taste of North American pro hockey. And now you go to the AHL and you just work through an entire training camp. You go through an entire season. I was talking with JR. He's not living with a billet family anymore. He's living with a teammate. He's going to be taking himself to the rink. It just didn't match up for Dvorsky to make this roster right away. He wasn't going to be a top six forward. You still had to figure out how to play at the NHL level. And right now, with 3 games remaining in preseason action, I would imagine Drew Bannister wants his NHL team ready to go for opening night next Tuesday.
And when you look at that NHL team, JR sent out the practice lines earlier today. Neighbors, Thomas, Kyrou, the line that we have all been asking for, that is officially in place now as your top line going into opening night. I would expect that to be the case. Shin, Booch, and Bolduc is your second line skating together today. Holloway, Foxa, and Joseph is the third line. And then the fourth line as of today, Texier, Walker, and Torpchenko. That is the fourth line as they skated today. Now, it's worth noting, I did not mention Brandon Saad's name. That's because he and his family are expecting a child. Sounds like he's probably going to be missing the first road trip of the season. So congratulations to the Saad family on that. We had talked to him about that whenever we were out there at Media Day early on. But I do think that the Saad situation, Alex, allows them to get some information about Bolduc before they have to make that decision. Hey, let's put him up in the top 6, see what he looks like for a few games. If he appears to be ready, keep him around. If not, you send him back down to the AHL, and he's on your top line there playing in every situation. And then as you get further into the season, if you need him or if he shows the readiness, then you call him back up. But I think this is actually a really good opportunity, given what the situation is with Saad, to be able to find out what Bolduc can do in a top 6 role.
Yeah, I think it's a trial run for Zach Bolduc. Not that he needs a trial run, because he's been good throughout camp. He's been impactful. But Brandon Saad potentially missing this first road trip, that's 3 games, gives the Blues an entire week plus a couple more preseason games, because my expectations he's going to play in both Tuesday and Thursday. You're going to get a whole nother week of looking at him against NHL people in your top 6. And if for some reason it just doesn't stay to the same type of quality that it's been through the first preseason games, because look, these next 2 preseason, you're going to probably see a lot more NHL-ready lineups, because other teams are doing exactly what you're doing, want to get the kinks worked out before the start of the regular season. So you get 2 more preseasons, you get 3 games on the road trip if Brandon Saad doesn't play. That's 5 games for Bolduc to see, are you a top 6 winger for us or not? And if it doesn't look like he's ready for that role, or if he needs a little bit more fine-tuning, then it gives you the opportunity to put him back down to the minors, go maybe a month of playing at that level, and then you bring him back up with Brandon Saad. But I mean, I think he's made the roster right now. It's pretty obvious how they're looking at this. And once Brandon Saad returns, then you can start doing some maneuvering, because in these last preseason games, The most impressive player for me on the ice has been Dylan Holloway. And that guy's going to be playing on a third line for you. Because if he shows more improvement at the NHL level, Bolduc doesn't get there maybe that first week, well, now you got a little bit more wiggle room to work with.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Blues back in action tomorrow against Columbus. That's a 7 o'clock game. We'll have pregame coverage starting for you right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN, tomorrow at 6 o'clock. By the way, programming note, coming up in about 15 minutes, the Cardinals will be hosting their end-of-season press conference. Sounds like you said, Alex, there's a picture. There's 4 seats that are there.
4 seats, 4 microphones, 4 bottles of water.
Interesting. That you would assume Bill DeWitt Jr., Bill DeWitt III, and Mo will be there. I will be curious to see if the 4th is Ollie, if the 4th could be Chaim Bloom.
It's got to be Chaim Bloom.
If the 4th is going to be Michael Gersh. I don't know who it will be, but that is the one that feels in question.
Yeah. It's got to be Chaim Bloom. If you've already made it known that he's going to have a significant role next season and he's working with your minor leagues to try and fix whatever issues you have.
That's where a lot of the questions are going to be lying.
And that's what both articles from both Derek Gould and Katie Wu have come out talking about, of fixing the minor leagues. Chaim Bloom has to be at that press conference.
And they're announcing a pretty significant promotion for him.
Yeah.
He's going to be going from a guy that was behind the scenes to a very forward-facing role within the organization. And it's possible, I don't know this to be true, but it's possible they'll announce that he's going to be the next president of baseball operations. Again, that's pure speculation, but if he's going to be there, I would wonder if they'll announce some kind of a transition plan there as well. So that's something to keep in mind. We'll see. That press conference is coming up at 2 o'clock. You'll be able to hear that right here on 101 ESPN at the beginning of the Fast Lane. So stay tuned for that. About 15 minutes from now, the Cardinals' end-of-season press conference will be played in its entirety right here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind, hand things over to the Fast Lane here on 101 ESPN. If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
You guys can always check us out on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. That is where you can go for the Fast Lane. You can actually start watching their show a little bit early if you want, get it all set up. They will have the press conference from the St. Louis Cardinals starting at 2 o'clock. So 10 minutes from now, the Cardinals are going to be hosting their end-of-season press conference. Bill DeWitt Jr. is expected to clarify some of the roles within the front office. So be sure to stay tuned for that. 101 ESPN. We will have the Cardinals press conference coming up in about 10 minutes or so. Alex, before we get out today, what are you anticipating?
I really don't know. I'm anticipating this team to give... I'm anticipating them to talk a lot about the issues with their minor league system over these last few years. I'm anticipating them to talk about how they got to this point, and that's about it. I think I'm anticipating a lot of gray from this team, a lot of broad strokes, avoiding the big questions about the RSN, the money, the concern as to what the future is going to look like. I don't know if they're going to give fans a direction. I think this is going to be more of, hey, we've got an issue, we've got to get back to what made us successful, and that starts today.
Yeah, I'm hoping we're going to hear two things today. One, they name whoever the POBO is that's going to be making the decisions for 2026 and beyond, because that gives me a little bit better picture as to what the plan actually is and who is going to be running things and who is in charge. And the second one is I hope they get asked, and I hope they answer it truthfully. Was this what they're about to do, tear down this team to the studs? Was this in good faith that you believe that going with the youth movement is actually best for the organization? Or is this just a cost-cutting measure because of the RSN situation? I won't have an issue with it either way, honestly, because I do think a youth movement probably is better for the organization as a whole, but I don't know to the extent in which they're already trying to sound like trading Sonny Gray, trading Wilson Contreras, potentially trying to trade Helsley, trying to trade potentially Arenado. I don't know if they needed to go that far, but I hope we get an answer on that today, but I think you're going to get a lot of gray and not going to find out.
I think you guys are probably right. I think the biggest thing that they'll do is they'll continue to say we got to get back to the foundation of what it is to be the Cardinals, right? And what they mean by that is we've got to get back to developing homegrown stars. And they haven't done that in a really long time. They really haven't done that since the early 2000s. People point to 2011 and like that Memphis Mafia and stuff. They didn't develop stars at that point in time. They developed really good players, contending players, guys that helped you win a World Series. But the stars of that team had either been developed already, Albert, Yachty, or came from the outside of the organization, which is Lance Berkman and Matt Holliday. Those are the types of players that this organization really has not developed since the early 2000s. So I think that's part of what they'll probably say. Another big thing will be just the reorganization of the front office. What specifically does that look like? What does the transition plan look like for John Mozeliak between now and this time next year? How specifically are they going to be? They've said a lot, we're going to invest in our minor leagues. How? What does that look like? Where is that money going to be spent? Because you can't just say we're slashing at the major league level to invest at the minor league level without having a plan in place as to what you're going to do. And then I would just be curious, how did you get here? Explain to us, with full disclosure, what happened, how it got here, and how you're going to fix it moving forward. So I don't know if they'll answer all of those questions, but those would be the ones that
Are you going to leave this press conference happy or mad?
Well, if they tell...
Probably a combination of both. I think I'll be happy that they are finally disclosing some of this stuff, and mad because I will probably feel, as you said, that they didn't give us firm examples and firm...
Because that's the part that I'm very concerned about, is getting a full disclosure from them.
If there isn't a clear idea of what the plan is moving forward, then I'll be mad. And that's why I said earlier, there's no reason when this press conference ends, it'll probably be about 30 minutes, so around 2:30 today, every St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan, us as a media member, should know what the plan is. And if we don't, then I'll be frustrated.
The Fast Lane will have that for you to start off their show. That's coming up at 2 o'clock. Cardinals end-of-season press conference with Bill DeWitt Jr. I would assume with John Mozeliak will be up there. We'll see who else. There's 4 chairs. They will play it in its entirety coming up here in just a little bit. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Katie will join us tomorrow to discuss whatever we learn in the next 30 minutes or so here on 101 ESPN. The Fast Lane's coming up next.